Yes, I do.
On board, introduce yourself. As you get started, if you press at the base of that, there you go, and you should have your thank you, sir.
And it's my individual, I live at 2473 Cosmic Park, Henningsburg. This is the level is, but I know I live about 80 yards north of it. And on the weekends when they had the amplified bass, I can hear it over top of my TV. While I'm in my home, windows and doors closed, and the shades are on. Not only can I hear it, but I can feel there's some sort of pulse in that bass vibration.
The volume of noise is different.
That's right, and it's primarily the bass,
Yeah.
amplified bass. And that's my complaint. I would have them stop that at the property line rather than up to the inclusion, because it's inclusion type,
I don't know that most of it, you certainly need to monitor that, I don't know. Chief, did I put you on the spot, have we been getting, voice complaints?
I looked over the past year, we received 5 complaints, 2 of them were the same night. They were all handled, there was no enforcement taken, no citations. When we would contact somebody at Ashton Homes, they were accommodating or subject to.
But I would encourage you, sir, to, you know, hesitate to be.
and we do that, and we don't make all the fees for that, but we do. And the thing is, I know the police recurring is professional, I'll call back and say, hey, I drove through, this is like 2 years ago, they drove through my line, and he says, it didn't sound excessive. That's not where we're at. But also, if they come to where I live on, 2473 Coffee Court, we're in their vehicle in front of the house. I don't think they're hearing the same thing we do, because there's a slope there, and they're probably about 25 feet below height of where that tank is. So that's sort of the factors.
You might see from that, chief, too, that if someone does investigate, maybe actually be offered that.
Does anybody know the difference between bass and like that sound that versus the decibel reading? Like, our always good things set up based on decibels. But we heard some things about bass vibration before. I don't know technically how it goes. Anybody has an opinion?
That's something we can look into,
That's the chief, in those 5 times that you were out there, did you take the decimal readings at that, or?
There's limitations with our sound meter, in regards to temperature, outside temperature. We do this in certain below a certain, points that sound meter can be used.
and maybe that's something we can look into, we can get something that has the more accurate reading or it's more version.
Every time until the issue is mostly about this, I don't either, the police maybe asking us, we don't think somebody. But the police chief, the decibel reading is not exceeding what the ordinance. No, there's no, that ball, of course I can't. I said that's what's happening.
But thanks for expressing your concern. Bernadette Scott.
Or the desk staff, I had the same address, 2473 Kaufman Court, Mechanicsburg, the same complaint. And we show up, we make a complaint, we call the police, and as the chief said, they only had 5 calls, but it's everyone there on that side. They don't call, but they all have the same complaint. It's just deplorable, you have no use of your backyard, it's said the windows closed, the doors closed, and then think that other room, another door closed, and you're hearing it. I think it's very disrespectful of the proprietor and site manager, because we know they have events, as Mikey just said that. It's okay, and they're playing loud stuff, so they know how to do it. But then there are nights where they just, it's just disrespect for the community, and I'm asking you to have the leadership to use the tavern as leverage going forward until she does something about this issue. If they haven't been approved for the tavern yet, they're still going forward with it, then I'm asking this board here to have the leadership to go forward and be serious about using the tavern for it, because to me, this is not legally, it's highly disrespectful to the community. This has been made, there was a yard sale recently, and a woman came up, she wasn't interested in buying anything, she was interested in buying houses across the street from us, because the word is already out about the houses that are getting the noise from Ashland, from the buildings, so.
That plan has not received appropriate.
And so I'm hoping the leadership will fight it until they really do solve this problem. And
Okay, looking at, sure, your agenda item as is, anyone else that wishes to speak to an
Good evening, Jeff Williams, 334 East Meadow Drive. I would just like you all to consider that July every year is National Park and Recreation Month. And in some communities designated as such. If you've been by any of the parks, they're packed. A good job that our staff does would be nice to show from that. So I'm just suggesting you all consider that at some point. Got a few weeks left.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah.
Evening, I'm Janice Lane from the Western Historical Society, the Executive Director. I really came in for 2 reasons, but one, I wanted to thank Commissioner Cochran for his phone call last week. You were a couple of steps ahead of PennDOT in notifying us that there was a successful bid on the Sheep Road Bridge, so I really appreciate that. And hope our conversation was helpful. And I'm just gonna make a brief comment about the Bishop Bridge. I know it's the amount of agenda time. But I just want to let you guys know that the president of the West Shore Historical Society, Paul Shearer, and myself are here when that comes up for discussion, if we can help in any way. So, thank you.
all Whitney, 605 Lavina Drive. I just wanted to make a comment to people who would, I was gonna ask you, could you talk to the DLCB, the state LCB, we can control wood,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Really chilly.
because they, I've seen them in action and they're pretty tough. But but no help on it.
Okay. You're working good, we rest on the board, so we're hoping that we're working that. But thank you. We'll look at it again.
We did, also some of the legal papers necessary to take over control of taverns for the township. Not gonna do that tonight, so the LCB is really sitting back waiting for us to do so.
Anyone else? Okay, then moving to the consent agenda, we have bills to be paid amount of $379,470.40.
That's some more I think question about, payment to anyone else on it. $37,770 for the PHE rate. Fighting, ratio earlier. Yeah, I know that's part of the line also, with Johnson controls, so I was just wondering, where we are, because. There's two non-grants, one, essential completion, and has it solved some issues yet?
Sure, I was under contract for $626,400 for the replacement of the ERU's air handlers and rooftop units. The total to date has been paid $550,555.21, so they're 88% paid. They're also doing punch list items right now, reinstalling duct factors for the storm alarms, making sure things turn on and off, but they're supposed to do things of that nature. The units do work. I believe the police department's already experiencing quite a bit less moisture and things of that nature. And this is condition, I think we just need to adjust the timing for this work. As for JCR Johnson Controls, they were going to replace all controllers in the building as well as full system balancing. The total work contract was $443,000. Total paid to date has been $416,056.30 for a total of 94%. Again, you're doing punch list items, just verifying that certain controllers are working properly, the lines have been attached to the right things. Then lastly, EI, who did all the design work for the system as well as doing design work for improvements to the building. Will be coming in at the end of the contract before final payments are made to verify all work has been completed. And then we'll do payments and so it's expected that all projects should be done probably in the end of June.
Okay, any other questions? There's an action.
I'll move for the approval of the bills in the amount of $379,470.64.
Second. Thank you. Moving and seconded, any discussion? All in favor, aye?
There you say I have to make a comment.
Did you want to comment on the,
Harry, my first one.
okay, we go back to the still.
I'm not. I just had, like 450 East Lisburn Road. I just, as a citizen, wondered that what the problems were with the building that needed to be fixed. I'm seeing that and that's something the transaction.
Building's 15 years old, the air conditioning units were at the end of their life and needed to be replaced. Humidity was a problem downstairs, as well as the controllers being over 15 years old and only allowed for 2 position controls. New controls do 5 position controls to allow for greater temperature control, which will allow for greater efficiency.
Scott,
Do you need anything else?
I know you're good. No.
I'm just letting you know.
Yeah, but that's what are the problems with the building, I guess, as a citizen.
I would say after 15 years, yes, the air conditioners were not working at full capacity. We were having maintenance issues. And therefore, this room, if you had been here last year, would have been about 80 to 90 degrees on a day like today.
And just to follow up on that, the building is, has a useful life to continue, but the mechanical system, 15 years without the useful life anyway. And we did,
I just received a lot of questions about it, if it's fair,
So we did authorize the study that we had, our official firm and engineering firm, and then can you really study of mechanical systems and water safety systems, the whole one, too. So that's one of the things that help identify that year again, where
Alright, thank you.
Sure. We should spur that too, because I think some of the improvements are to make sure that the air is clean in case we have to shut down again. So that's an additional benefit that we didn't have before.
Okay, action is ready to complete on that, so we'll move to public safety, and I'm going to have one, why don't you go first, Chief Sergeant?
Thank you. I've got one item here for the purchase of a used 2024 Ford SE. We've agreed with Bob Ridge Ford for a budgeted purchase of a 2024 Ford Edge SE with a trade-in of 2010 Ford Taurus. For the agreed price of $22,500. As I said, this was budgeted in the 2025 budget. This vehicle will be used as an unmarked vehicle in our fleet. And I'm currently working with Bob Ridge Ford to finalize this transaction to respect the request for take official action to ratify the agreement to purchase.
Questions, Chief?
I don't know, the chief knows it's already, it's in the bills for.
Not.
We're all simply. Too far.
Well, we know
That's pretty cool. Yeah, okay, so.
Any other questions? Was action?
Move to approve the purchase of the 2024 Ford Edge for the cost of $22,500 for the police department.
Second.
Second.
That's good, we moved to second, any discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, no. Carry, thank you. Anything else, Chief?
Sir.
Okay, Chief Schomburg.
The only thing I have tonight is, Saturday is our chicken barbecue. So chicken will be ready around 10:30, 11 o'clock. Come early, support the fire department.
Well, if you keep moving it up, it's gonna be for breakfast, Chief.
Trust me, we have people pull in at 8:30, 9 o'clock, ready to chicken.
Well, it's good chicken, and it's a great way to support our fire department. If there's nothing else in public safety, we'll move into planning and zoning, let's pass this, so. Yeah.
Yes, first item on the agenda is consideration of a subdivision land development plan for Fantastic. This is a retail store. And it would go along South Market Street, approximately 6,000 square feet in size. This board did review this plan in part, back in January when waivers and deferrals were requested regarding, some curbing on site and installation of sidewalks along South Market Street. In particular, that deferral, the board had asked that they look into any alternates with regard to the walking trail that's back in the Thornhill area, any connections. So there is a letter from Zimmerman's regarding that trail connection. And then we do have a plan we can put up for everyone to see. At this point, I will let the applicant give their presentation. If you have any more questions, let me know.
Good evening. Joe Burgett from Burgett and Associates, land surveyor.
Yours, please.
Pardon me?
Russ, please.
The address? The address is 23, my address or the property address?
No, your please.
Okay, sorry, my address is 1797 New Bloomfield Road, New Bloomfield, PA.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The Zimmermans currently have two different properties that they own out by their shop. There's a residential home on 2324 South Market, which is the yellow rectangle on that map screen. To the north of that, there is their existing Zimmerman shop, which is at 2234 South Market. Zimmerman would like to convey the existing home, and the new buyers like to remove the existing home and construct a new retail store called Fantastics believe there's a existing facility in Mechanicsburg now that we look at. So the Zimmerman's kind enough to allow the owner of Fantastics to utilize the existing entrance that comes into their facility now. Originally, PennDOT could not find the permit for that entrance, but they did find it in their dead file system. That is a low volume permit application that currently exists. But currently PennDOT is still reviewing our application there. We had some comments in one of the drainage letters we did provide drainage letters about 2 or 3 weeks ago. We're currently reviewing the application.
It's your addition of trying to keep it at low volume.
Yes. Yes. So the existing entrance comes into the existing home, which is between the yellow box and the South Market will be removed completely from the grass lawn. So there'll be no access there coming in. So you look to the north of that plan, the upper part of that plan, you can see the entrance coming in there. It's gonna come in and make the immediate left, come across the property line through an access easement that the Zimmerman's will provide to owner Fantastics. It'll come into the parking area, which you can see shaded area there. It'll cover the access drive comes all the way around to the west, southwest of the building in yellow, where they have a dumpster and a loading area there. Off to the west, there's a existing detention pond with about 18 and 19 evergreen trees that sit on top of that berm currently. The intent was to originally just use that basin, thought we could do that, but ended up that we could not use the existing basin, we had to expand the basin. So we actually take out the trees to the eastern end of the basin, and take that bank and just push it back toward the dumpster to get some additional volume that's needed for the current part. You think if there's any here, you've got some relief on some buffers, for the new business, would be the 23-24 market. As Mr. Boyer did mention, we came in from waivers to some referrals, which you got kindly recommended a prior meeting. So we have submitted our ES plan to the Conservation District about 3 to 4 weeks ago. So that's currently being reviewed as well. So that review of the PennDOT currently being reviewed. Other than the entrance, PennDOT is reviewing the entrance. Also, there's a section of curbing that's being installed. Currently, the curbing comes around the southern end of the entrance, comes down to almost the end of the PC, the end of that curve, it stops. And then there's no curbing from that down to our property line, and then curbing does pick up on the neighboring property to the south. So we are gonna extend that curbing down along the frontage, and that's also being currently reviewed by PennDOT. The tough part about it is right now the water comes off the road and then just drains off the road down into a swale. It's in the front of our site. There's an inlet there that catches the water off the road. But by putting the curb there, you're sort of blocking that. Alright, so what we were proposing was to come down to the end of the property line and actually create a gap in the curb, so the water would be catch as much as possible, because we put it down at the end of the property, we're catching as much as we can. Then the water will come in through that gap into where the existing entrance sits now, and we would create a swale right down to that inlet. So the water will come down the curb into that gap and then down into that. That's what's currently submitted to PennDOT for the.
The historically city serve only the two proposed business, or does it also serve the existing?
It'll service both. So we have the stormwater easements that we had.
So you're expanding or supposed to expand space enough to accommodate both
That
properties?
is, yes, correct. That's correct.
And that's what you're waiting on, and that's what they're.
Well, the ENS approval is for the disturbance of the whole site, everything. Okay, we can still talk here, rocket show entrance there, this way, it's. So anything, if we have.
That's the same access that the oil change.
Yes. They have two entrances.
If I see that, I'm looking at that thing, with quick loop show up on that plan, or is it further back?
I think it's just off the edge of the top. It's not far, it does not show up currently on that map, but it's not far to the north,
Just seems like there was a lot of congestion at that one intersection come from.
No, it's not.
Because quick loop is different, because it's difficult, you have to get in, you're on the wrong side turning in. But if PennDOT's okay with all that, it should be okay.
Yeah, I would think if you went further back and entered into this, it would be more congested. And I think getting the traffic into this facility as soon as possible would help that. Which is what we're trying.
You have a plan sheet that shows the landscape project.
There'd be a landscape plan right there. So that's, like I said, on the west edge is the basin, which shows existing vegetation there now. And all around the new building, you can see the circles. And then the small circles, that's the landscape that we're installing.
I just started watching my, I guess they would call these still got that west side.
That's okay, it's south.
There's like 3 short monitors. I didn't know if they're.
Oh, you mean, when you turn in? Yes,
Yeah, we turn.
they're reading,
Okay.
yes.
I think I wrote some theory on a lot of landscaping walking in the facility, but I didn't know if you do smaller club and something. Given, water above,
Yes,
just to make it. That way.
Yeah.
And up the distance in a way.
I think we could put some landscaping, landscaping out front or something, they got to do something like that. Yeah, the top part was right across the street from this facility is residential zoning. Which already has buffering, that buffers their property, so that was what the zoning hearing board approved, us not to have to put big trees and stuff in front. So, yeah.
I would just be looking at something attractive.
Yeah, sure.
I've always thought consider it's attractive, so
Yes,
decision.
yeah, we can add some small little landscape on the front, sure.
Yeah, I saw some of the materials you proposed, some of the green giant arborvitae, some of the new plants, but those sort of stuff.
So, tell me how you think kids are gonna get to the site, can't drive. Coming up to the sidewalk if broken.
Very good, the drive. I mean, let's just develop it back, they'd be trespassing if they went across, with their existing traffic in there, but.
Well, we spent, township money to make 2 acres sidewalk friendly.
Sure.
And we had to come out to Market Street, and we had this issue. Whitney Ridge, a portion of Whitney Ridge has sidewalks, came out to Market Street, and nowhere to go. And all of Bowman's Hill has sidewalks, that come out to Market Street, nowhere to go. So, and I see there's no chance of connecting to the trail back there. So I'm not in favor of deferral, I'm in favor of running sidewalks across the property. We've got, try to get this a lot of community, and we've got a gap that people feel. And I think this is what I feel.
Although I think we had talked previously, and I was under the impression that, and in fact, get from the trail is behind the property, and then come up into the,
Yeah.
across.
Originally,
We have to cross Market Street, come the whole way down through. Bowman's Hill. Bowman's Hill. Because that's the trail starts in Bowman's Hill, goes down around the corner of Bowman's Village and come back up, so. It makes it twice the trip. And I frequently see people walking to West Market and back. And we have.
Well, they use that trail. You're right.
No, I'm talking about people coming in with the bridge and coming up, they're out of Market Street. See them walk out there.
What's the situation with the Turkey Hill? So that's not. That means they could be, that could be all in. What is the fair point? I think you saw, yeah, they didn't, but it's around 600 people. Only across the market line.
Yeah, and that's correct.
Okay.
It was originally,
Stuff.
it was originally some discussion about putting these men across the parking lot, that was events, we all had a meeting out there. It was determined that it was probably a very unsafe liability issue for them. Because you don't know what time they're gonna be coming across, they could be coming across heavy traffic, during working hours, cause an issue, so. That's why they accept
To the board, I'm curious about that because when you walk from one business, one location to another, it's not uncommon to walk across another. Property on like, I don't know, maybe that's something you want to ask the other guy, but to me, you could get from that back trail, doesn't address what you wish to, but you get across that back trail. Come up into the back of the Truman property, come across the parking lot right to that.
Yeah, it's not, the trail does come up, that butts their property, just north of the detention. But the issue is the liability of that individual or individuals coming across their property, especially if it's kids.
How about,
Not knowing what's the right thing to do or not, right?
how about marijuana, these CVS to get them walking across?
Yeah, I think that unless there's an issue, you probably would never have an issue, right? I mean, if there's never an issue, then that would be probably a legal thing, right? But I can understand, I mean, there's a business here that has vehicles coming in and out all the time for service, right? So,
Yeah, I just think it has our, we're just trying to help you not have to build sidewalks.
I understand.
And you can't, I find it hard to believe that your attorney put in writing that kids are not going to come to this property without driving.
I mean, it is a retail store. So they're coming to buy something, so typically if they buy something, they're gonna be leaving with the same vehicle if they came in with. Just a little.
Because a lot of kids do.
There's development there, right?
There's a lot of housing in. Bowman's Village, Bowmanville, yeah, some people are. Get there, try, I can suspect. That's why. I mean, I agree, long term, maybe someday it'll be sidewalks along Market Street, but until that, there's. Seems to be an easy fix, just come from that trail. But if there can still.
Yeah, I think Mr. Rodman is here, if you don't wanna talk about it. If you wanna say something about that. Not gonna answer, talk about it, we can hear it.
Judy Zimmerman Walter, I live at 12 Mile, my residence is at 2257 Nova Court, Mechanicsburg. The business is also at 2234 South. We originally were under the understanding that there would be, and we're willing to put rock or stone, whatever, from the path at the corner, our right rear corner, if you're coming from the lot, right rear corner, into on over to our lot, somebody could walk from there. People walk on the lot every day. And they're not gonna people that put, and they've also. I mean, people don't use sidewalks, they walk on the street, come on, if you go into a relatives lately. They don't walk on the sidewalks, they walk on the street. So my thing is, my family does make a path. Their path is right there too, I'm through this to my lot. People are gonna walk there if you want to. And don't care with that, I don't care. But you have to be aware of your walking across the business, but I mean, my staff has been very, very, very aware, be careful. What's coming, or whatever, and I even have to stop saying my building before we enter that last turn to go out to South Market because. One of my customers actually slammed into one of my vehicles one time because they didn't look. And so what I'm just saying is that I'm willing to accept that, but I cannot give you easement the whole way across the back of my property line and over to their property. Because what if I might sell 10 years from now, no one's gonna buy something at the back of the easement, they might come and bulldoze my business. Now there's a easement there.
So what you're, so I understand,
Yes.
your suggestion is that to get the fantastic from the trail over on the fantastic problem.
They could just come onto my lot. But they can't get from that trail to, well, Campbell Hill, to get to the Fantastics, because they would have to go. Once that trail, it's a pretty level area from that trail to the right, my right corner of my lot. Then Bowman's Hill or Village, whichever that is, it drops way down. And my back lot has where the trees are, as there's a very large, it dumps that, it just falls down. And so the liability, I would almost have to put a chain wire fence along that back wall to give a right of way back to move, and I'd have to move all my dumpsters in. Then on top of it, I'm trying to get delivery vehicles, once a day I get tire deliveries and in that back area, and it's not real tight. I mean, it is tight, I'm sorry, it's not real big. So my point is, why can't, if people need to go across from that path, walk across the path, and then they can just walk across the back of my lot to Fantastics, they can get through the trees are not smacked together. They spread together, but they do not plant tight that prevents someone. So that they can easily go into the back, Fantastic, slide back, I'm not sure. Of his Fantastics and easily get that. You don't want people close to your pond, especially if it's full of water. That can be very dangerous. I've seen it full. Seldom, but it just happened.
So I don't. What the line is persistent.
I'm gonna have to put a fence up. They're asking me to put a fence to make the easement was across the back of my very back of the lot, which across way down into the thing. Then make a left turn right where the pond is and come across the pond. So now I'm fencing off the pond and then fencing off the hill that comes down. Yeah.
I'm gonna have a shot, Jen, the back of the.
You want an aerial?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we were asking the engineer for Fantastics to investigate if we can build sidewalk connection. I mean, we have to show the public that we have thought about pedestrian access to that site, because they're gonna come walking. And by saying they're gonna walk through, it's not acceptable. But we have to show.
Not through trees, but there'll be opening between the trees.
To defer building sidewalks, we have to show that there's.
But I never thought you were ready to defer that. You were ready to defer that.
Why didn't we? I don't see a plan showing a connection.
That was their problem, but that's not what you did.
So the permit is still up for discussion.
That's your, yeah.
Okay, so.
See the trail of the rear end of that, there's right here, yeah. So I think this right there by the 96, 86 dimension. You can almost see a little walking light path off that 45-degree corner. You have one here?
You don't have one.
Okay. Yeah, you see there, see that light trail right there, the arrow?
Yeah.
I think Mrs. Irvin is saying that she wanna look at construction, make sure, but time. And then anybody can walk over to the parking lot and.
So how do they get that fantastic?
They can walk straight ahead and come up in front, or they can walk across that. It happens all the time, in both areas.
Just doesn't want to provide easement. Changes name, so we do connections to the parking lot to the trail. They do it.
Oh, yeah.
That's what she said.
So you recognize that people are gonna come across your parking lot,
They do it all the time now.
and you're not gonna stop it, but you.
But you can't tell me that, I'm gonna say that 95% of them are, I'm not gonna be one of the Fantastics. It might be one look maybe for a couple weeks, but that's it. Yes. If they're gonna drive parks, they're buying snowboard or something like that. Yeah, that's what we see. That's all.
They needed so that on the association control that they need to get. And on the property. That's what I thought was gonna happen.
Oh, I see. Where the arrow is that go connector from the existing trail to the parking lot. You would have, you have to get an official.
I mean, this, their attorneys need to say it's static, but. They need. I mean, without, I don't know, what we mean. Pedestrians and setting into an unsafe place. Without something. That'd be a problem.
I would agree with that observation. I would think like some.
Yeah, you'll just talk about it.
Oh. Right, yeah, talk about, no, I just said that I would agree. You would agree? Well, I would agree with Rick that.
Returning pedestrians to Facebook cars or certain thing, and like say, define the area of freezing. Parking lots all. You don't typically see sidewalks just down here parking. If you're, for example, when you drove to OB's, then you decided to walk over to CBS. But there's no sidewalks in there at all. And there's two retail establishments you chose to walk between, so that's. Don't leave people off of it. But I think it'd be a different issue. The sidewalk would be in there and just stop. That's something my concern here is that we're not addressing vision people. And people, I guess people are gonna come up here and they just back across the road.
They come across, and then home be the trail.
Well. You showed the stormwater retention area. This is all down.
This one?
No property.
Oh, on the property, sorry.
Girl. See it.
No, it turns.
No, it,
Yeah,
yeah,
they turn up, see, it's over here to the left.
it turns and comes down. Comes out the Kiefer way.
What we originally proposed on our easement was from that trail line. Is to come down and grass strip along the parking area.
Right.
To the southern end of parking, then go along the base of there at the end of parking. And then right over to Fantastic.
Oh, that makes sense, like, that happened.
The easement was the big issue. Because of the liability in the future something.
At least they want to be lost in parking lot.
By the time that sale happens or that particular point, you might have sidewalks or parks.
Why is this in every apartment solution?
But certainly not, but
Seems like we're pick one. That trail thing. It's not solid. What do you have? Okay, right, no. Wow.
Jim, can you just give us a brief overview of the status of the corridor, the sidewalk corridor along Market Street? Some sections have been completed, and our hope is to continue that all the way down across the front of this property.
Yeah, so I have this map here, that shows the corridor, so in blue, those are existing sidewalks. The green would be, when we talked years ago about, kind of creating this extension. Right here is Weiss in the upper left corner, so this would be like the Turkey Aqueduct. Zimmerman's, the fantastic site, you can see that in there, and then you get to Round Ridge Road. So the idea was to eventually have sidewalks along this side of South Market Street. And a lot of this, I believe, was discussed when, we put in the new signals by the 15 underpass and they added in the pedestrian access. The ADA ramps when you did work on the intersections with Hancock. And then this purple down here along, Bumblebee Hollow, those are deferred improvements. And I think with, let's say that was deferred because, the walking trail being provided, if I recall correctly, but that's what some of the purple is, those are, deferred improvements. So as you can see on this stretch of, 15 between the Kinmakers Bumblebee intersection and down to Brown Ridge, we have one site that has sidewalks in right now.
That's in front of the car wash.
Yes, that's in front of the car wash, and then the Turkey Hill does not, we would have to, require them to put it in. And then, we're talking now about these two properties.
Well, the homeowners association at, Owens Hill would have to finish the top up there too.
Well, so this property on the end here is privately owned, it is not HOA property.
Okay.
So we would have to reach out to the individual property owner, whether their HOA comfortable with that or not would be a discussion that we need to have. But it's not, common land, it's not common HOA land, yeah.
Ultimately, the goal is to create a single pathway along that side. Going down to, Homestead.
Correct, and then coming all the way down here even further than. I believe Commissioner Cochran talked about, Whitney Bridge, portion of sidewalk along. Whitney Bridge, if we come down through at this intersection here. And, Spring Valley.
It used to be that people from Whitney Ridge would frequently come across Market Street and walk the sidewalks of Oaks Hill because they're limited in Whitney Ridge.
And yeah, and I don't know that we've had, at least not during my time there, I don't think we've had much discussion on this side of it. Along Whitney Ridge side, but obviously we want to be mindful of any crossings along South Market Street. And that was one of the reasons we didn't put sidewalks on this side here because of Aspen coming out and creating big block crossings, so we focused more on the Aspen side than South Market Street crossings, so. But along this west side that we're talking about now, there is sidewalk and intersection access here at King Acres and Bumblebee that allows for safe crossings over to the King Acres side.
So then a question I have for the applicant, as you looked at these, I mean, obviously, heard this discussion, and it's not new. So I suspect you and your client made the decision that rather than advocating for sidewalks along South Market Street, you were trying to get a satisfactory entrance in through from Bumblebee Hollow Road in the, to that Bumblebee Village path or Owens Village path. Over Zimmerman's Automotive and it's like passing. Now you get a roadblock, you can't have easement, so I think you understand the two options. So I think it's up to you and your client as to which option.
Well, that's sure, I mean, I would support deferring the sidewalk, but I think that. The time that permanent is now, so. I would say, plan to move forward with the permanent, but we should as a board. Be moving forward to have all those properties. Build this sidewalk, made it down.
Say it's something somewhere, like do this, you want like here or something. It's not.
I just think if you're doing this property now, not sidewalk in there. People take a little bit of time to investigate the two properties you have to press. That's fine, but it's only 3 properties, I believe. You signed this one.
Turkey is all.
Your turkey available, dinner's on move, that's fantastic,
Besides this.
yes, on.
I think doing it now makes more sense, rather than getting down the road, since we're ultimately heading that direction anyway.
Well, and I'm sure this board was, did, your direction was going towards something in the back, but now you did a. Want you to do. I don't know if that we can do with anybody, if you go over to the next or the other room. I mean, if putting the access, I can property with the people. Then how do you solve pedestrian access to the South Market Street?
There is no other way.
Yes.
No,
please come.
Did you really work at the East Lidburn Road and now I'll put my Corner Valley Road Trail hat on? And maybe you got towards right, what do you think about by pedestrian lane? Is it lighted up there?
We looked at that whole corridor and in that. They were in favor of us doing like that.
You mean on Market Street?
Yeah, there's so many kids riding bikes in there.
When they repay, we asked them to consider.
Pretty close.
Good thought. Well, you're representing. Reply, and yes, it's fantastic. It seems to me that. You and your client, along with the, wholesale rest of the session.
I understand.
Yeah.
So it sounds like the consensus is we need to show the sidewalk now, here or there. That's what we're
The
saying.
choice is if there's no trail available,
Right,
then you need to do a sidewalk.
that's right.
And then you're seeing that, but I don't know, maybe there's a trail. I mean, I'm not, I don't, that's you, you're the engineer, but I think it's, I'm gonna find you. Deal with your client, and say, and we maybe that work, or we do stuff.
Right, and I also understand that if we do come back with a plan with tying into the trail, then the owners still need to understand that the other sidewalk still may come
Right.
down.
That's still deferral,
That's exactly
it's gonna come at some point.
That's right, that's right.
So maybe now or maybe later. Sure.
Jen, what is the, how much time do we have on this line?
Your last available meeting would be the first meeting in July if we are even still having that, so if not, then I would say it's time.
Well, I might suggest that. The first your line, et cetera. I think it would be wise if you would offer a time extension, so that you can work that out, and then I think. I would talk to your client. The other part of the current order is for this discussion, so yes, I would imagine you involve them. And would strongly encourage you to interact with our staff. I don't think that's happened here before, as I understand it, but I suggest that face-to-face meeting is often better than electronic communication or phone call. Sure, because when you deal with these things, just like tonight, look at pictures, you lay out the information, then good idea.
Okay, so what was the discussion about you not having a meeting in July?
Typically, we don't have the first meeting in July, August in the summertime.
Okay.
But we don't make that decision until our next meeting.
Jen, you said our time extension is a little bit further. So that.
Yeah, so you have until July 3rd, that's your current end date, so I'm sorry, I guess you would have the second meeting in June.
Well, we think
Yeah.
we bring out propose the extension to the June meeting, and then I would hope by then you might have some direction in terms of which way you wanna go, so that it was the fall, because I don't think anyone, I've not heard any negative comments about those use, and the fact it's in a commercial zone, and it's a great business that young people, young people use and they share recreation, but
Okay,
we have to be concerned about these things.
that's what I'll do. I'll get a time extension in for your second meeting in June. And then I'll get with my client and staff and we'll see if we can work something out.
The other thing I was talking to your client about at one point, that never registered, your rec fee is not much, like out brand like 3,000 or between 2,000 and 3,000.
It was like, right on our
But
list.
I think if you worded a waiver from that, and show the other things that the owner is doing
The township.
in township and, or we know he's up to something that those things come to fruition. I can see that, maybe one might consider waiving that $2,000.
Yeah, that's a good point.
This isn't a direct, this is just an old man's advice, but I found that when working with municipalities and working with clients, et cetera. Probably more communication is better than less communication. Talking to staff, I don't think they felt like they received a lot of proactive communication, so I encourage you to use staff, that's what they're.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. Moving then to,
Yes, the board actually, does not consider this.
but you need to announce.
Yeah, so the homeowner was seeking a certificate of appropriateness regarding their front door. They have prepared that in kind, so there's, no longer a need for the consideration of the certificate, because they were originally asking to replace the door. So the door has been fixed, and, they thanked everyone for their time and consideration, but we can withdraw that, application.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Then we go into, you wanna keep going, Jeff?
I'll keep going. So next up is consideration of waiver for the review process regarding the Liberty Forge Golf Course. This property is mostly in Lower Allen, and they are proposing development on the Lower Allen side. There is a small portion of the land that falls within Upper Allen, and I do have a sketch plan here. It's to the left of all the homes. But what would be then added to the land in the Upper Allen side would be some of the existing trails and some new connections to the trails that are there now, as well as 2 stormwater basins and a dog park area. The rest of the improvements to the site would be in the Upper Allen side. So to date, staff have been, working with the developer and applicants as well as Lower Allen, and PennDOT. We have been involved in the preliminary review of this plan. And because the lot falls within both municipalities, there's 2 parcel numbers, so when they would move forward with their final plans and such, it's possible, because of the 2 parcel numbers, that the county will require both of us to sign, both municipalities to sign, which, so that I think they're willing to accept that if we put something in writing, waiving the full development review, and then we don't need to sign, they can note that on the plan and just get the Lower Allen township signatures. So I asked the developer to come with a waiver request for this board to consider. And I've also spoken to Lower Allen Township staff, and with our input, they are willing to manage the land development review process. Their stormwater basins, the stormwater goes from Lower Allen side into a basin and then directs back into Lower Allen, so we're not dealing with stormwater runoff in that sense. And then they would be handling any financial security requirements as well as inspections of the stormwater basins. So they are okay with that. And then they're just looking for guidance from our end of what official action this board would want to take. So that's why this waiver is before you tonight.
Thoughts?
The only thing, I don't have a problem with it, Jan, the only thing I would like, I talked to Vince McCollum at the Conservation District about this. I'm concerned that those basins still would fall under our purview for MS4 requirements. He suggested that when they do the long-term O&M agreement, that Rhode Island specifically signs that agreement spelling out in that agreement that those two basins will now be part of their maintenance requirement, is not. So the townships, if that's their effect, plus something goes wrong with those.
Correct, and I did talk to Lower Allen about that already. So they have agreed that that is okay, and then if there ever comes a point where the enforcement needs to be made, they're willing to take over any enforcement action on that as well.
We should get.
Yes.
That's.
Correct.
Because we have other deeds.
Yeah,
That was supposed to go.
so we were, yeah, so we would get to review that, and then we would also retain a copy of it as well, once it was executed.
Well, that's something.
But it's a great suggestion, that was something that came up as a concern
Stephen
of
Josh
ours.
is in earshot, so make sure that that's something that you deal with that.
Right, we would send it over to our solicitor. Yeah,
You want them to be totally responsible.
Right.
They're not.
yeah, and we would make sure our
So
solicitor is
if
okay with
we have
it.
some kind of letter that approves the waiver, that specifically language should be in there, because this discussion will get lost, because it'll just show the letter and then never show that stuff being done.
Right.
Whenever.
So if the board makes a favorable request for this waiver, then I would ask that condition be stated as such, so it's part of the record, and then we can put that in writing to everyone as well.
So I think we kind of, I don't know.
You put that on the deed too, whatever.
It would be a recorded document.
Yeah, the post of search is on our news when it gets recorded for us now.
Yeah.
I think it appeared like we have kind of positive. Do you need, would you like a motion so that,
Yes, and we could do an official motion, that way it's part of the record.
Okay, one more discussion.
Okay, sure.
I'm sorry, and we had talked about this at the public improvement meeting on.
Correct.
Third. And, I live with that end of the township, I'm aware of traffic backups, and stop sign was down the road, proposed entrance of this development being. So my main concern, traffic comes the wrong way. And
Right.
I'm not really in favor of just trying to go back over the rail. I see a lot of this county, particularly the traffic impact. And in your memo, you mentioned the scoping meeting application process with PennDOT.
Right.
Yes, this one right, it's road.
Correct, our state road.
It is very busy. I love the impact on it. But we can also be aware that the Old Forge Road by the golf course goes immediately in Fairview Township bridge. And there's 130 or like 140 acre tract. I believe it's under option to either rezone, just put landmark homes. So all that could be coming down for sure. In the future, so I think we do something with the broader impact play on traffic. And if the development were to move along, encourage the entrance to come out of the full road.
Okay, but then that's fine, that's the motion is impacting it around country, because the jurisdiction, I need that information. That's
Well, I live in a township, and I am fed up with the overdevelopment and lack of regard, just done more and more. So as long as rural country roads, and where I live, you know, it's like a tax on your time, that's in here. Your breed and the wildlife, it just got more and more developed. It is your profession to do this kind of stuff, but you live in this country, I live here sometimes. I'm sorry to get angry about this, because there's no reason for us to like walk away and not ask serious questions about this project.
what I was getting at, what you can do as part of the scoping application. Up around, we could mention that you're aware of some traffic things that, and we want kind of look at that. Go.
Yeah, and I have our traffic engineer looking over the scoping application. We were asked to provide input on that as well from PennDOT, so. I'm waiting for our traffic engineer to provide comment, and that's something I can mention to him as well.
And they prepare like minutes. but that's so.
The meeting
it's
is
like,
have like, meeting minutes have to be prepared.
Yeah, the meeting minutes,
Municipality.
yeah. Yeah, so PennDOT typically does provide some type of minutes, yeah.
And just for the public, my profession is designing and doing engineering and development, but the performance of all laws and ordinances, not, we just don't do things really, like,
It's not, it's not, I'm saying that it's, well, it's just your profession. And the rest of it's not a price.
Well,
Oh, it's the, we should be forward thinking and how we were zoning.
Right.
So if I understand the request, Jen, it is that we would waive the review and the signatures, et cetera, but we still have voice. Into the lower round process, even in the PennDOT process too, so if I think concerned that Commissioner Fairchild raised on the vote, we can certainly communicate that.
Yeah, we can communicate that, that's not a problem, what Commissioner Fairchild is asking for, but.
People will not be subject to coming for and having the corrections, yes, all of them, understood with us, the video, the whole realm.
Jim, can you clarify exactly what a scoping meeting is? Does it cover?
It's just PennDOT's sort of initial meeting to become familiar with the project. It allows everybody an opportunity to kind of go over the project, discuss any initial concerns. If PennDOT has typically reviewed it at some level, the plan and can offer some guidance on you must do this or that when you submit your full application. It's kind of like a preliminary meeting. So,
In addition,
yeah.
you municipality could say, and we would like to study the four-way stop this morning. And I would say, yes, we agree, actually part of the scope of the traffic room study or not, so those things can be discussed at the scope meeting.
As well as the entrance.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, they did talk about the entrance, they talked about site visibility, pedestrian access, things like that, so.
I was watching TV this resident, through that four-way all the time, and something happened, 15, 30, everyone impervious. Trying to use this like road is the way around, and that road has.
But all of that. All of those entrance improvements, well, I think we should have voice. They're all in other municipalities. It's Fairview and Lower Mountain, so it's going to be impacted by. Well, we're impacted secondary later, but the jurisdiction in the other municipalities, I understand.
Yeah, so I mean, like we would have that secondary impact because people are gonna travel across municipal lines, but the access to the site is in the development is all in Lower Island. So
I think it's a four-way stop.
yeah,
I think we should
correct.
have voice to that.
Correct.
To that.
Yeah. So we can certainly make note of our concerns with that intersection and that they, look at that closely and we, would wanna see continued, responses coming back to us of what the plans are for it, but
This is,
it,
unfortunately, it's common to us because of our location, I mean.
Yeah.
I look at Market Street, and I look at the traffic going from Monument, now they've done Maori Orchards, and they've got another building going up out there. I don't remember them ever coming to us at all with anything, because they're far enough back off the line, they did
correct.
ideas for stormwater. But unfortunately, we get dumped on when other townships develop, and the traffic needs to come through us to get to 15, and I don't recall money ever asking anything about developing anything along there, and that the light at Lisburn and Market that's it, because it's not that delayed and you could never make a left turn while the traffic's coming. It's just part of being located where we are, building goes out and away from the center and
Let's go right by lot. We have more safety.
well, only to the extent on that piece of property that's in the township, that doesn't give us permission to dictate to them their development.
We did. but it seems to me we can consider. So,
I'm not sure how we would trace that traffic.
What do you do in the overall township meeting? What's your concerns?
I'm not sure how traffic is an issue for us on stormwater. We had some, if one of the outlets was in our township, yes. But our real jurisdiction here is stormwater on that piece of ground, as I understand, is that correct?
Correct.
well, actually, I see the solicitor looking at us, I have you. Just being able to consider traffic aspect of.
No, because the roads are in Lower Allen Township, it's gonna be up to PennDOT in Lower Allen Township. What the entrance to that development is, and Upper Allen Township can make a suggestion, but it doesn't have any authority to interfere with Lower Allen's decision or PennDOT's decision.
I'm not suggesting necessarily interfere, but I don't believe we need to give up this right. I don't believe we need to show waiver or grant a waiver.
Well, the waiver doesn't impact whether Upper Allen Township can make an impact or not, because the waiver would not deal with those traffic issues. That's for Lower Allen, or PennDOT to address.
So the waiver would really only be applicable to the portion of land that's within Upper Allen Township, which in reality is two stormwater basins, but that doesn't give us standing to comment, approve, disapprove the development of Lower.
Yes, correct.
So I think the scoping meeting might be an important thing to get our interest and concerns there, and then as we get feedback, that if you can keep us informed of that, Jay. Seems to me that might be a place where we can have voices that will try to influence and
Can you provide any case law on that? Is there any really false stuff, but it also addresses what Jim said, just how the joint municipalities are affected. Like I know, like, there's a mechanism. I will municipalities do.
I mean, I can follow up on that, looking down further, but. Not very necessary.
Sure, I just appreciate it, follow-up.
So if we move to disapprove the waiver request, the developer shall be required to submit a subdivision and land development plan application for consideration. Does that mean they come here with set drawings for the entire property, or they should all be just a set of plans showing the portion of the retention?
It's gonna be the same plan set.
Okay, so it's the same plan set. And there's a discussion during that presentation about the entire development.
They would have to go through more ordinance. They through our ordinance and ask for a waiver, it's just like it's process, I guess, it's owners.
Yeah, we would be looking at everything on the Upper Inland side. So that's the stormwater basins, the trail, the dog park. That's all we could review under our ordinances.
So we wouldn't be allowed to review the entrance design.
No, that's in Lower Island.
So I understand, but if they're required to bring all of that documentation for consideration, they're presenting all of it.
You can make suggestions, but we cannot require anything to occur on the municipal side, just like we can't require developers to do things off of their property that are in Upper Island, because those are off-site improvements, so think of it that way.
How much weight do we carry going into a scoping meeting?
PennDOT makes the ultimate decision. I don't know how serious they take recommendations or not. I mean, they certainly look into everything, but at the end of the day, with state roads, it's their jurisdiction, and they will decide what improvements are required or not required. Just like they do in projects in our township on state roads.
The county has already reviewed the plan.
The county has
So
reviewed
the
the plan.
name is our ordinance at all, or it is. I mean.
No, they stuck with, I believe they stuck with Lower Island, they did make a couple, comments, I think, for, us to consider, or for the developer to talk to us about, but. The only thing that they would look at with our ordinances would be for the tract area that's in Upper Island. So when they make comments about sidewalks or street width or, intersections, anything like that, it's all based on the Lower Island Township code.
Other questions or comments? Appropriate time. Good also. Anybody in the world action?
I move to disapprove the waiver request as presented. The developer shall be required to submit a subdivision and land development plan application for consideration by the appropriate township.
Second. Move to second discussion.
I'll be voting no for that. It's not needed in this case, as long as we go through with the coding application and the stormwater is. They're taking care of the.
I feel similar, and I think to Eric teased out something as important in the chat as amplified that we should have voice and certainly look at in the scope of being other things, address our concerns, but really in our jurisdiction, it's really only that those improvements are around town, which there is no proposed building structures in the township, so. Any other discussion? So the motion is to disapprove the waiver. All in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed, no?
No.
So motion failed 3-2.
I'm going to approve the waiver request as presented.
For second,
Second.
move to second, discussion.
This is making it easier for the developer.
It's not.
Instead of, it's not going to then. They could be functioning.
Nothing about the developer.
Yeah, we don't have any jurisdiction over it.
If we had seen jurisdiction,
We have jurisdiction. To some degree.
they're still playing by all the rules. They're not seeing.
Apparently, that's what it's the program.
Okay,
So.
all right, so the vote is to approve or accept the waiver. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, no?
No.
Motion carried 3-2. Okay, next item, zoning text amendment. Yeah.
Yes, so before you is a text amendment that would amend certain parts of our zoning ordinance. Most particularly the definition section in agricultural district. That use in particular is dealing with contractors, office shops and yards. We did take a look at the ag district and found that this use, while has historically been permitted in special exception in the ag district and by right in the industrial district, don't believe that makes the best use within the ag district, so one of the proposals is to have the contractor office shops and yards removed out of the ag district and put into a commercial district. And there's also some additional criteria proposed in the ordinance that this use does not have any specific criteria. So there were some proposals as to suggested additional criteria. Some of this criteria mimics a lot of what we have for other uses, so you might see the language repetitive in other similar uses, but this is before you tonight. The planning commission has reviewed it and recommended approval. Our Cumberland County Planning has also reviewed it as well, and their comments are included in my memo. At this point in time, do want to get some feedback from this board to see if they're okay with everything. We did set it up that if you are, you could schedule a public hearing. But if you want any changes made prior to that and prior to us advertising the draft ordinance, I welcome that discussion as well, and if it's something that needs additional attention, we can certainly bring it back to you at another meeting.
So, Al, you recommended 2 changes and we addressed both of those.
Correct.
As you look at the ag district, was there anything else that popped out? That we're gonna go back and revisit the ag district, I just wanna make sure it's not gonna be something we do 2 or 3 times. Was there anything else that didn't seem to fit while you were doing this?
No, we did look at all the uses and it did seem at this time that, those uses were pretty standard for what you see in like ag and rural areas, nothing that jumped out, nothing that the planning commission, mentioned either. It was really this use because it was seen as more of a, kind of almost like a commercial retail or wholesale type use, which didn't really align with the intent of the ag district. So looking back through it and looking at what other places have a similar use, they have it in more of your commercial or industrial settings, so that's where we felt that it was more appropriate to be. And then I also want to note, you'll see where I said I deleted contractor's yard and then offices for contractors. We have the different uses as 2 separate definitions, so we thought, well, we'll just combine those into one, make it a little more clear for everyone if they're looking for that particular use. Doesn't mean that, a contractor office also has a shop and a yard. It's something that they could have, it could just be an office, so. We just thought it provided a little more clarity.
I have a reservation about the amendment, but I'd like to go forward with the public hearing, but I think maybe that could help better inform me of my position, but. It's interesting, I guess, so long as the farmer, as long as he or she poses that a contractor's okay because they're a farmer, but if it's someone else that wants to do something in that zone, then we're proposing that's not allowed.
Well, it
That's
has,
my issue.
yeah, it doesn't really have to do with anything if you're a farmer or not. I mean, the use could occur whether you own the farm or not own the farm.
Okay, so I'm a farmer and I have 300 acres of grain and I'm farming, but I also have a custom business where I go out and do custom work for other farmers throughout the region to do combining and silage harvesting, etc. And I have a shed, I have an office, and I have a business. I probably brings in more money than the farm, but anyway, it's a contract. But that's okay because I'm a farmer and I accept that percent.
No, I don't think this would, the way we understand this use is that it was never whether you were a farmer or not. It was just a kind of a commercial use, so you could have a lot in the agricultural district, not be a farmer. And still offer like different supplies and equipment for sale, for rent, you could lease
That's
it.
the contract part of this, but.
Correct.
Thought we're suggesting that not be allowed anymore.
So what we were suggesting is that this use altogether not be permitted in an ag district. Yeah,
Then that also applies to a farmer.
it could, but I understood as like you were saying they had to be a farmer or something, so, no. But if a farmer had a business. It could also depend exactly what their business is, because it could fall into a home occupation. So if they have an office, just as like a lawyer or someone else, or accountant or something has an office on their property or in their home. There's criteria where that could be a home-based business and that would be permitted. That's not necessarily falling into this use.
President Mark was saying, if a farmer decided he needs to have more income and be an excavator,
Yeah.
he can't have his back put on his farm.
Well, his own backhoe, yes, he can have one farm, where this,
Using it for,
if he's selling it or leasing it or, you know, things like that, where you have this equipment and these materials and people are coming in to buy or rent it or whatever, then that creates a commercial business. And that's what this
this
contractor,
business would be digging trenches, excavation.
yeah,
That's a good example.
yeah, so that would fall under this use. And you're saying you don't wanna see it taken out of ag, correct?
That's what you're saying. That's what it is.
Well, no, we're saying that under this proposal, it would be removed from the ag district, but I think what I'm hearing you say is.
We're just talking about it.
Is how that affects someone who is in the ag district.
Honestly, like restrictions on it, like proximity to a residential area, things like that.
I'm sorry, but that,
What's conditions on like proximity to a residential area, so forth.
Yeah, these are additional criteria that we saw when we were looking up the use to try to find like what others may do. This is, you know, this 14.18.5, this is not something that we currently have in our ordinance. We don't have any specific criteria for the use.
So the
We don't have to.
It's only in these industrial and commercial zone, it's not in, there is no, in the ag, it's not permitted at all.
Under this proposal, it would be removed from the ag, correct? And we don't have, and going back to what Mr. Fairchild was saying, that we, you know, these are new suggestions, so. We don't have to add them in if this board isn't comfortable with that. These were just, suggestions that we proposed for everyone to look over.
Okay, you're putting it on a hearing, owners of ag can tell us it's no good.
Yeah,
You
because
don't get spoken up yet.
it just seems. I'm not sure what we're trying to fix here personally. I think this was probably initiated by a specific example, South Market Street, and then it came to be a township-wide issue, and or maybe I'm missing something. I don't know, but how we went back by the initial.
My understanding is what could happen.
Yeah, could.
Is that you could have someone go into a farm.
Yep.
Decide they're gonna turn it into a major equipment distributor and rentals. They're not doing farming at all. But they're gonna sell tractors, backhoes, excavators in an ag district. And again, when you look at the definition of an ag district, that's not what it's about. So you open the door up so far that you can take farming out of the picture completely. And all that would happen on that 100-acre farm might be 100-acre contractors equipment.
Isn't that what we do with residential areas?
It's not with residential.
Oh, is that what we do in agriculture, we sell residential areas to become subdivision?
Typically, just rezone. Typically, that's rezone, doesn't, we don't really, so the farmer sells and whatever rezone them. But this, my understanding of the way that the zoning ordinance currently exists, you can come in and just build, take a big smaller, maybe a 75-acre farm, you just turn it into one big contractor shop, and that would be appropriate. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's, I think, already in rent, is that suddenly our farms turn into equipment dealerships. And the little farm we have left is still yours.
As you get under like more commercial pressure, but.
Would you like us to look into something along the lines of, allowing such business in the ag district and keeping it as any limitations to like size or owner occupancy? Things like that, almost like an accessory use to the farm, kind of like they do with agribusiness.
Accessory to the farm, that makes more sense to me.
Yeah,
We had discussed this previously. Tonight, if you know, the schedule, hearing. Might like that schedule, hearing, and then how to get more, that's what I get more. So I entered this.
They do that early on tonight.
It's a long process, just to, right, that, be fine,
Yeah, but it's also important to get how you want to hear it, board wants to see. Ordinance, because if we go to the hearing, we change it, then it has to go through the whole process. So you wanna make sure you have it delegated once. As close as possible. And to that extent, personally, I'd be happy with auxiliary use,
I'm sorry, with the what?
auxiliary use, this
Oh.
contract versus auxiliary use,
Mhm.
farm, but not standalone.
Right.
Yeah, you have the accessory. Accessory. Yeah.
I mean, so that's something that we could, work up and then present back to you. It would have to go back for review. Anytime you make changes to an ordinance, it automatically you have to have the county have to allow them at least 30 days to review. There's something that we can also have our planning commission look at it again if we want. That before you get to the public hearing process, Commissioner Pashania brought up a good point too, even if you do the public hearing process and you make changes, you still have to go back through that whole process again anyways. So either way, you're going through the process. Yeah.
I got the feedback and you wrote it.
Right, I don't mind seeing that.
So I think it's important to get some. The rural voice or the farm voice and or the open space voice in that.
Right.
Because. I guess. I know it's a move to try to get your open space and guideline that I respect that, but realistically, there's few residents of this township that make life well. And those that do often have an auxiliary or have done something else in the entertainment business or the food business or the excavation or something else to supplement a bring up. So that's a reality that I'm interested in the farms we do have, but not handicapped, so just.
And,
Oh, I'm sorry.
And everybody Smith,
I'm talking to.
okay,
What I do that?
855 of Mechanicsburg. The models that I've seen for this type of activity, it's to enable farmers to keep farming and have your auxiliary or your a side business. In Lancaster, they use it a lot with plain sack farmers. And some of the things that to me it ended up sort of being like Amish industrial parks. There would be sawmills, furniture, but you were talking about trying to keep it smaller than the primary business of agriculture. And but there's a lot of models in Lancaster County for trying to support agriculture, keep it there, people for selling for development. And it was successful and good with that, but some of the businesses that came in were kind of large, and welding shops and metal shops and things like that.
It's like you said that would be, but that's the gist of what I'm trying to communicate, because I think that the day of. Well, I don't know this isn't the actual, but I don't think there's a lot of farming in around township that where families getting their livelihood. So we have to accommodate.
all, but we can have an office, and plus the day, we should have reservation. Great. Support that. So, I mean, we don't have much more, but some people say, but again, sitting down.
That's right. So what's the world group? You want Jen to go back and take a try doing some likely with the auxiliary use animals and like or whatever, or should be scheduled for the hearing and it put the public in ourselves. But the idea that we'll probably go back and just don't say.
I think addressing it the way we're talking about now with address Mr. Clancy's concerns too, because he's seeking the same concern you're expressing right now.
Right.
He was the one negative with the
Correct.
that he just didn't want to handcuff farmers who something. So that probably go up there to the planning commission too, because he
Yeah,
So,
yeah, I don't mind, you know, we can take this off the table and we can come back with amendments, I don't.
well, or do we have a public hearing then, or should put it then because.
It makes sense, it's here from, when we do themselves, I don't, where, you use contractor.
I'm very which way we go, we gotta, but it's fine.
Stand, that's something.
Do you have a reaction? I mean, I think we're kind of suggesting that last idea is, we're gonna go through it again, but.
Oh, yeah, that's fine, I just need to know if I need to bring the stenographer in.
Let's, I suggest, let's get through the public hearing, try to get as wide a input as we can. And then, should you ever propose date 10?
I believe, we did, so we proposed either July 16th or August 6th. So if you did July 16th, keep in mind that you have the stormwater authority meeting also, and so either. And but those, both their dates are both commissioner meetings.
Well, I would hope that if we at least now would have a public hearing, and if this is as big an issue as I assume it could be, but I don't know what you think.
I don't know, I haven't heard from anyone yet, so,
Well,
I mean, they could come out during the public hearing.
There, yeah, I think so. You know, I'm very,
Except we have stormwater, then you only have 3.
we don't have our time to know. First meeting on this. Well, we found typically it doesn't happen.
Well, we could do that anyway.
I would like the first meeting in January, you know.
That might be the second hearing. I'm just kidding.
Right, yeah. Would you rather meet at 5 o'clock on a commissioner stormwater night or like on August 6th, have a regular meeting? It just has a public hearing, that's very fast about it, and a very good night. Okay. So July 16th. Or folks. And we arrange a 5 o'clock period. Oh, yeah. So would someone need to establish the date for the public hearing at 5 p.m. July 16th?
I move to authorize the appropriate function staff to advertise the ordinance in public hearing to be held on July 16th at 5 p.m. to discuss the zoning text amendment request. The board should hear testimony during the public hearing, following the, excuse me, following the close of the public hearing, the board can consider taking action to either approve or disapprove the proposed ordinance. Regular board of issues meeting until the 16th at 6:30 p.m.
So, move this second, discussion. You're right. Aye. No. Now let's go to historic signs.
Alright, so we have been talking about historic district entry signs for the Yellow Breaches, Shepherdstown, and Trout Run historical districts. We've talked about this at Public Improvements Committee a couple times. And we also took the request to HAR to see if they had any suggestions. And we discussed Park's comments at our May 23rd PI meeting as well. Basically, the HAR was in favor of these signs. They really enjoyed the signs and thought that it was a great addition to advertising the historic districts in our township. They did make a couple comments on location, and we did discuss this at PI, and Shepherdstown was okay. I'll just go through each district. They did make a comment about possibly adding a sign on South York Street. Also recognizing that that is a state road, so it would probably require proper permitting from PennDOT. Or consider it as an alternative if we want to do 2 signs now and a third later. But they did make the suggestion about maybe putting something on, South York Street. And then, Trout Run was okay. And then on Yellow Breaches on this map, I have little red dots for like approximate alternative location. They really thought that coming in off of Lisburn onto McCormick, it would be a great, visibility of the signs as opposed to further down by the bend. And then you're entering the historic district as well as you're turning onto McCormick. So that might be a better location, we did talk about that. And then because of the third sign comment that was made with South York Street in respect to the Shepherdstown district. There was, comments when we talked about this with the PI committee about adding a third sign over here on Arcona Road because you do come in that side as well, so. Here is an example image, this would be the Shepherdstown district sign. And then they follow the same format, except for the image on the top is, specific to each district. So, Commissioner Walsh has been kind enough to do some legwork with regards to the sign type, material as well as pricing. And we did get a quote for the cast metal signs, for $19,700. So, we are asking for the board's consideration to install these signs, not to exceed that amount.
So just a question, is that for 6 signs, or is that for 6 signs and 2 alternate signs for a total of 8 signs?
It is for 6 signs.
Oh,
They are $3,200 each.
so would you, I mean, I personally like the alternate locations both on York Street as well as on, what's the street, thank you.
But they'd be small. Yeah, that's what it will be.
I think we did talk about a smaller type sign.
Did we mention these are 32 inches? I mean, I'm not mentioning that.
Oh, yes, in the quote, it does say 24 by 32 inch size and they're round one.
And then, so are you recommending that we take action on the 6 signs and then take action later when we get pricing or something with the alternate, or?
Yes.
Okay, that's a separate action later.
Yeah, I think, if anything, we can just have action taken to, approve the, to get these 6 and then to move forward with the additional 2.
The alternate. And are we talking about? I thought there was some discussion on the Yellow Bridge side on McCormick, that we would have the permanent sign kind of so that it would introduce us to the trees as you're coming down. I don't think up as far as the Albert, but not down as low.
There's this second
Right around those red dots.
Okay.
Yeah,
So you move the yellow dot, that second red dot.
correct.
Is that part of the motion? I mean, to me, I really. Commissioner Walsh has convinced me that there's, it's not only the improvements for the structure, but even just the character of the area. And I agree that when you come down McCormick into that tree line canopy, I think that's
Right,
really special.
and the property right as you come onto the corner is where the historic district begins.
I like the idea.
Yeah.
Okay. Other discussion?
Thoughts again, in my opinion, we studied this, and I think it's why Phil and Eric are actually on the board, because we had this 2021, we started studying our historical districts, so we're doing, it's one of the reasons, I don't think it's the wrong reason. But, we put out an RFP for professionals to study it, we hired one, they studied it, came back with a determination that really the only historic district we have in the township is Shepherdstown, so that would be the only one I look for signs on. I don't support signs anywhere else in the township. We may have some historic structures But they don't, it's not a district, it's clearly, but, has gained this size, and it defines as historic district. That still, but,
Finally,
again, yeah.
spot the head. Sure. I think you're referring to the, not sorry, waiting board.
Yes.
I spoke with the Pennsylvania Historic Museum Commission and asked them if they had the chance to review that document. And was told that sorry.
Well, he's looking, I was just, user, small. Or is there anything after 1900 to 800? Something about the Jericho that excluded one of them. Buildings.
So I. All right, according to the PHMC, who reviewed that document, the environment report used as the criteria how to apply the National Register criteria of evaluations used to evaluate each of the districts. According to the PHMC, the National Register of Historic Places is a federal program which has no relationship, involvement, or association with local preservation planning of Pennsylvania's municipal ordinances. He further went on to say, all in all, the National Register program has absolutely nothing to do with local preservation ordinances at the local level. The methodology laid out in the report makes it clear as day that the incorrect standards and methods were used to evaluate the districts.
And also, if you go back to when these historic districts were created in 1976 and submitted to the PHMC, their response, they said that these maps are insufficient. The information is insufficient that was submitted, but anyhow, so
I
sorry. I think.
do you mind if I finish?
Sorry.
Sorry. So in their determination, that document was not appropriate, and that the PHMC already determined that the districts are worthy of preservation. We can possibly go to a higher authority to get a different opinion. So just in reference to repeat myself, all in all, the National Register program has absolutely nothing to do with local preservation ordinances at the local level. The methodology laid out in the report makes it clear as day that the incorrect standards and methods were used to evaluate districts. That's it.
So you're defining this the information to create these historic districts, how is that correct? You defining that as there was no criteria under
There was.
just not really sure.
It goes back to the 60s, predates the federal program, and I'm sorry, I didn't bring really all that documentation with me, but there's very clear and definitive guidelines that were used and were followed. And so, tonight we're talking about signs, I appreciate your concerns that maybe personally think that these are worthy of historic district designation. But I would like to add that the individual I spoke with also stated that in his personal opinion, Yellow Bridges Historic District exemplified everything that works with regards to a good historic district. That was one of the districts that was slated to be axed by this document.
Who did you speak to, though? I'm trying to
Frank Grunbaum.
Who?
Frank Grunbaum.
Okay, thanks. And he's with the historic district.
Yeah, Central PA Community Preservation Coordinator for Preservation Services at the PHOC.
Right now, if I may, there's overlap between these, but right now we're talking about the sign. Motion, we got motion on the board that we got. We're just, that's what I'm sorry.
No.
We do not yet,
Okay, so yes, I will have a motion on this side.
I move to approve the purchase and installation of the Casanova Historic District entry signs for a cost not to exceed $19,700.
My second.
Just for clarity on the motion, this is to, yes, at, the three.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's fine, okay, that's now.
Six signs, three districts.
Not Roseville.
Then move to second, we have some discussion, any other comments from the audience? All in favor, aye? Just one second, I didn't realize to this point that the sizes, I thought they were slightly bigger than, you see. Bit expensive, I'll still go from that, it's not. They're bigger than 32x14, that's gonna be hard to see.
curious, and Phil, this doesn't affect my vote, but what's the icon on top of Trap Run? You know,
Union Hotel.
that's Joe's stuff.
Check, this check. I'm sorry, what's the question?
I'm sorry, what is the icon for?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yellow Bridge is the bridge, is the Stone Arch Bridge. And for Trap Run is the original settlers stone cabinet dates to the early 1700s.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
Bridge, or is it?
Move on.
It's called intrusion at very south.
Any other discussion? All in favor, aye? Opposed, no?
No.
Motion carried 4-1. And I just want to add that with the understanding that we will also pursue the two Albany sites. Okay. Now, discussion of historic district boundaries rehab, a memo from June of May 27th. If I look at it, it suggests that we resolve Rose Garden and then it has a few changes to Trap Run, Shepherd County Hill.
Correct, so this was discussed, the boundaries were discussed at PARC on April 15th. Asking that the Board of Commissioners consider, these amendments and then, providing some direction for moving forward to, because it would require an ordinance, to adopt the new official map. So I'll go through the districts. Up on the board is Rose Garden, so it is one property. It was believed to be created because the mill that no longer exists. And Harm felt that not only since the mill is no longer there, and one property does not equal district, they felt that that should be dissolved. Going over to,
We just pause a minute or.
yes.
I did early architecture, I believe it shows Mr. Gates' home. Or Mr. Gates' home in that, the architecture. Yeah, you look at the property map, it shows it at 1790. I just wondered if there was like, and I also wondered whether Mr. Gates had been contacted. What city district is all. I mean, maybe probably examine it now or not.
Well, so he was not contacted, but I did provide him my memo. He showed up at one of the board meetings, November of 2022, and he made a comment about his home not being in the historic district.
Yeah.
So I provided that to you. That was the only response we received from Mr. Gates.
Right, I think he, son. Yeah, that's what he, district is responsible.
Yeah, that property is never shown to be part of this Rose Garden
It
district.
is, that's the green one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was only this one property that was
I have.
in the district. Yeah, yeah. But I did include that quote, I found that quote because I knew you asked about it. All right, we okay with Rose Garden? Obviously going to review. So on this map, the purple line would show the boundary of where they're proposing the Trout Run district to be, and this would exclude now the townhomes in Ashland Farms. And then it would still, so it wraps around to include the property on, Coke Circle, so the properties being green are the properties that are identified in the early architecture book for Upper Island Township. And the district kind of goes around them. What's that?
70.
And before is early. 1970.
Oh, no, that's
What's defined as early
I think so.
No, that was just the name of the booklet.
I mean, because the
went back.
log cabins at 10, 12, west of this one were built in the 50s. They always.
Right, so they kind of, because what we figure is they looked at some of the properties in this area and then drew the boundaries around them. So it does include, so the top one boundary currently does include all these properties in green. It also includes.
The green one is nice, not. Right, it's not a historic farm.
Right, true about it. I mean, it's a modern intrusion.
And it's shown like green water. It's shown as green.
That means it's in the.
The problem. You're saying no.
Being green is in the book as historic architecture, it's not historic architecture, it was built. It's a modern book. That should not be in the district.
Which property are you referring to?
The one at 10, 12.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, wait a minute. There are several properties. One of those is in the 1700s. There's seven properties. There's a log structure up here that was just built recently, But yeah, that he said, but the original home, common home there does need to set up the 18 buildings. Yeah, and then this one over here has a structure of these 1700s.
I thought you had good blockade. I don't know. It's pretty.
Yes, that makes me. I have this. How to say that something I have this would be. Have a real historic district versus historic properties. Which you can check this out. That's why it's opinion where you say that for sale was to be people.
Yeah, I didn't know if there was no discussion on travel lines, so, okay, then we go to the Shepherdstown district. This district would, the park recommended taking out 333 Scenic Drive, which is right back here. This one was built in the 70s, and Scenic Drive is a private street, so there would be little oversight. From what we could see of this property anyways from Gettysburg Pike, and since it wasn't part of the homes that were listed as in the district in the early architecture book, they felt that that was appropriate to remove that property. There was some discussion about these properties here on South York Street about possibly removing them, but Barb ultimately decided to keep those. And these properties here on Gettysburg in front of what would be Daybreak Church, keeping those in the district. So the only change from our current district would be the Scenic Drive and, oh, I'm sorry, there's a little overhang here for in the terraces at Shepherdstown, and we would move that back to follow the property line of 411 Gettysburg Pike.
So my concern of this district is 1944 South York, built in 1998. And there's no historicals to it at all. Nobody here is going to be encouraging, but when it was built in 1998, the people had no idea that it was a historic district. I don't think it's fair to do now. I mean, I'm worried that it's across the street. It's the last one up. It's right next to the scene, right there. That was a 1998 structure. The ones on the other side of the street. 1939, 1943, they were both built in the 30s, so I'm fine with that. I'm really historic, but I don't like the fact that if I gave homes in there, you want to like the town homes, but they get taken out.
Just because a home is built recently doesn't mean it can't be compatible with the character of the historic district. The designation of the historic district does not include the building of a new structure if there's a vacant lot in the historic district.
It's not about that. It's about, they'll have to go back to a hard for the improvements they want to make for a home that they had no idea was in historic district and has no historic characterization.
And you're aware of the fact that they did not know they were in the historic district.
We didn't even know there was a district back there, back then, how would they know?
So what do you mean we didn't know?
We didn't know this board goes over there. Like, there was no history of the historic district, we had to go back and look them up.
Like, I mean, you're protecting like the district boundaries, not keeping it in. But I agree that we need some improvement or modernization, how we treat these houses that are out, so that they don't have to come apart. And maybe that's in that other section 155.
I have no problem with the rest of them that are in there, and even though some of them are historic, but that one's off.
But then you start finding what's way and then still look across the street, then
It's off on Union Street, it's not in the main part of the region, I just, I can't vote for that.
Chief,
You're missing one, 1850. It's not where the elementary school is on your street, and then that's a lot. There's a house, and then it's a little white house, little white frame house. So, and then it's right when I had that.
What's the address?
I don't know the address off the top of my head. It was strange just right when I was a kid. This happened without that said 1850, so it cost me $18.
on. Great.
I don't know my phone.
you're Judy, point that to us.
Oh, there you go.
So which house were you referring to? You said on York Street? This is York Street,
There's a school, and there's another lot,
right?
and there's another, that's Diggs, that's this little.
This one?
Next to the parking lot, the next one,
This one?
right there.
See, that's
Built in 1930.
1930.
I was in the issue. That purple.
No, so that's not in the district.
Did that one?
No, it only,
Oh, this was it.
it only goes
Just the parking lot.
to these properties, yeah. So if you go back to here, it's these two properties, so you would have to go all the way. You have to call 3 years, well, not only that, but then you can't just add properties, so. They would have to be certified, you have to show, you have to meet certain criteria and show how it fits into the district. Which. I don't know if it does or not, for Shepherdstown, that's something that would need to be looked into. And then it would need to be certified, we would obviously wanna reach out to the property owner, if that's something to look into.
That book was great, and it was optional to participate, so it may not have been in the book. My parents didn't, just. 1860s car.
So the book was done by a bunch of volunteers, so I don't know what their criteria was for why they selected some homes and not
It
others.
was optional. you didn't have to
Yeah.
participate.
Well, and I know they went door to door and tried to ask questions, so it could be that maybe no one answered, maybe they didn't have information on it, you know.
In Staffordshire, remote questions, we should have. Okay.
I'm fine.
In the future, we need to.
Okay.
Yeah,
She'll have to tell us her address again. I guess we forgot.
There you go. Yeah, 1927 South North Street.
I don't know if you'll be able to stop it.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the property, sorry.
So we could make a motion to adopt these districts as they are, or we could.
everybody will reach you. Oh, we're talking about that are good size, you're right,
Yeah.
that's pretty helpful.
You want to give yellow Bluetooth? Okay. So here is the Yellow Breaches District, and they were proposing that this district remain as it is currently.
So again, my concern here is that we brought in property from Glen Allen tonight. I thought the original map showed the lower portion of the property and not where the homes were built was in the district, so you move the line and bring the whole
Yeah,
property.
it's true, I mean, the ordinance says that the line should move to a property line.
Okay, so now both their homes will be in that district too.
Right, so it hasn't really changed, because if the previous map that was shown shows the cross-gating portion of the property, then the entire property was considered to be in the district, so technically this map what this map represents hasn't changed. Is that correct, Tim?
Yeah, so the ordinance says it encompasses the entire property, so since the map was done in the '70s, it was. Not as detailed as what it can be today. So we would show it following the current property lines. Just to give it, and we would also show like a listing of addresses and such, so that there was clear answers on, is my property in a historic district or not?
And none of this one's face McCormick, that correct or wrong, went out. Which part is for?
They all face.
I think they all face Allen.
Page 2840.
Or there's one.
Yellow Breaches and McCormick Road, that was put up by. This player. You access it from Glen Allen, but you come down around the front, which facing.
Yeah, I think there was discrepancy though when Allen Gun was done, because there was previous interpretation that it only encompassed so many feet along the right of way. So when Allen Glen was built, I don't believe they went through Harb. Because the idea was that the homes would not be in the district, only the back ends of their property.
So again, if we're talking about this, I agree there's some historic structures in the green, but to call it white, the historic district is, my common sense doesn't do that way. The new home we designated one of those homes is asking the ordinance saying those specific properties, but all this white, but the homes in the white.
Okay, let's go on to.
Alright. You got a 450 East Lisburn Road. Do the people know that this, are they been notified when they get this happening?
We're building 10-foot trail, we have to have acorns and all that stuff, so, yeah, they should be notified.
We're not changing the district.
Not recently, when we did the Navarro and Wright study and talked about the districts, everybody in the district was notified. So they were aware of it at that time, but we do recognize that properties could change, people forget about things. Maybe not following along, but know that we're talking about it again, and if it's something that the board wants us. You don't have to take action on it tonight, and if you want us to notify all the property owners to see if we can get their input. We can certainly send another letter out.
In the interest of openness, transparency, all this. Or, we took action to decide from, I think that's very useful. But the districts themselves, would we be wise to contact every property owner all three districts now? And just say, hey, we're redoing boundaries, we're looking at this, just want you to know that the revised district has your property in the historic, would that be an open transparent thing to do?
I mean, they're already in the district, I don't think we're looking to add anyone at this point, maybe take something out, but we could certainly notify people.
Well, but I'm just saying, because several times tonight, do the people know it?
Well, how about we remember that when Bush was made to abolish the Elbridge Historic District, every single resident in that district signed a petition. They wanted to keep the district.
What is that?
2022, 2023, when Mr. Walsh circulated the petition. Every single homeowner in that district signed.
And you mean, and staff was contacted by several of the homeowners saying, I'm not sure I understood what I signed. What does that do for?
I mean,
But which district is that, Eric? You're saying? Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I thought-
yeah.
Yeah,
So you're saying all of those people already have been notified?
they were notified when we did the study in 2022.
Oh.
Yeah.
We're gonna get stagnant, fighting the common court. I support notifying the homeowners. And not just saying, hey, this is gonna be the historic district. I would wanna know what that means. That means when you look at your house. So I don't think people really do know, something historic district, what does that mean to me legally as a home?
That would have probably for a long time is the education.
One at a time, Bill.
Sure, so the designation of historic districts has been around since the mid-1970s. One of the biggest problem that I've found is that people are not, they acquire a property and they're not aware they're in a historic district. Okay, that is the crux of the problem here. So my hope is that we can re-gear this and educate these property owners in terms of not only, in fact, we started the process already by sending out cards to every resident of each historic district. And that card was a reminder, hey, you're in a historic district, don't forget, if you need to do anything that's visible from the road, you need to go to the heart. So that was sort of the first step in the process. Now, we're also having discussions in the Historic Architectural Review Board is also taking up the potential development of a guidance document that will be provided to each resident. So the idea being that this would be a further educational tool to let them know that if they want to do any changes to any part of the house that's visible from the road, that they'll need to meet these guidelines and go through the Historic Architectural Review Board for certificate of appropriateness. So when I bought my property, we did this district 5 years ago. I thought it was an historic district, but then I came to the township, was told that it was not an historic district. It wasn't until over 20 years later that I found out that I was in a historic district. And here I am, got the rah-rah down for historic. So, this is an effort to restart the process in the sense that we educate everybody who's in these districts to let them know, hey, be aware, this is an historic district, and not only that, but when people buy a house, it's critical that those realtors, or whatever the process is, make that potential buyer aware of the fact that this house is in an historic district. And to make them aware of what the appropriate steps are to be part of that community. Okay.
Or, I was just gonna say, the sign that's well, Salt Park, that guy, it's probably a lot. But the main thing I've learned is it only applies to the front of the house. Once it's along the road, and so a lot of these cases, residents, it's all like just having an alleviate some of the concerns. We should make it as easy as we can on people.
Bill,
Part of the areas.
Bill stated that we're restarting the process, so maybe we should notify everybody with the ordinance. I mean, there's no guidelines in the ordinance. I mean, we have guidelines, I guess, but the ordinances, there's the ordinance, we should send each property owner a copy of the historic ordinance that was done and say that we're looking at.
We should probably, say recommend for modern, that chapter.
think a guidance document would be a great vehicle for that. I think we need to get that in. I think you're absolutely right, Rick. We need to get that in the meetings. But at the same time, ensuring that it's not something that's not something they can handle. The guidance document, I think, is a great educational tool, and we can actually include that as part of that guidance document. That's a great idea.
So you suggest that realtors and sellers should notify the prospective buyer that they're in it. I agree, but that's not gonna happen. It would seem to me the only way to help you, Josh, but the only way you could really guarantee that a prospective buyer knows they're buying a historic property is if it's listed in the deed somehow.
Yeah. Well, signs are I think signs are.
But I think maybe that's, I don't know, if we have the opportunity to do that, but that's really how you assure owners gonna be.
I think we should, just like we did for the random sidewalk, have this, each district have a specific meeting with all, you know, if nobody comes, then we know nobody's interested.
And just a comment that Eric made, this goes back to the point I was trying to make, is it only applies to from the house, right? So all these houses are now in Glen said, one, can do anything they want to on what you can see from home. Because that's the back of their house. It's only the front of the house which can't be seen from there.
And so it's really shouldn't apply to.
So it shouldn't apply.
Leave that around this.
Correct. That's what I think it should
This is
be.
just like, this is like, do they then build some obstacles? I mean, what they did, as we did change this line a couple of years ago, they all stayed out of this.
Jim, can I get some clarification? Just, it's a good question. So for example, Tom Becker, the next door to you, he has a property, it's in the historic district. The front of the house is to the north, on Allen Drive or whatever it is. Does the ordinance specify McCormick Road, or is it from the road?
No, and that's what I was gonna clarify, so it's anything that can be seen from a public right of way in the district. So if that entire property is in the district, then even the side on Allen Glen.
So it's not a whole house.
So what essentially be their whole house.
Both sides.
Yeah, so it's not specific to just one or two roads.
Or just in that case, the front, because.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if they orient their house on Allen Glen or McCormick, they're still in the district.
Karen, you wanted to say something.
Aaron from Smith, 55 at Louisville. If I was a realtor and I looked at this bag for my bunk, I would, and I forgot that when we were transferring that property. I think you would need a disclosure statement, like you got radon, you're in a historic district. I'm an affordable housing person, and if I didn't know and my realtor didn't tell me, I'd be looking like, oh, here's something, and it probably would be worth or whatever, but I just live in it the way it is or whatever. I don't, if I knew I had to do some kind of upgrades that were out of my budget, I probably wouldn't even look at it in there. It's not that it's a bad thing, it's not in my sense.
Oh, I did that. Indirectly, you're also supporting the idea that anyone who's owning property within a historic district to form the nuclear.
And if you're a big beyond this when you're trying to sell it.
Well, that's, I'm talking about the here and now.
Yeah.
Listener was gonna say something there about, I always don't like this latest one. Well. Weren't you gonna say something, Josh, or?
No, I can, if you have a question, I'll answer it.
Oh, or this lady. Be attached to the heat or something, you know. Is it that sort or something that would flow with the time, it's not, you know, regardless of what the program or.
Well, we were just having a sidebar here about whether the township could require that in deeds via an ordinance, but we have to look into that.
It would, I think, catch when it's all in the cracks now. Perhaps, but you have to.
Well, we have to look at legality.
Yeah.
I'm far from an expert, but my son lives in a historic district in Philadelphia, and I looked into that from the standpoint of whether agreements of sale were required to disclose the presence or the fact that it's in a historic district. And generally, that's not required by ordinance, although the good practice is in the seller's disclosure statement that be disclosed to a buyer. And whether that would give a buyer who doesn't get that disclosure recourse against the seller, that's a more open question, but at least to my knowledge, and I could be wrong, in the Philadelphia historic districts, there's not a requirement within the commission regulations that all sellers disclose that in their agreements of sale.
But just like what zone you're in, your requirement.
Well, and this is sort of straying a little bit, but one of the things I sort of followed were in historic districts when there's you say a townhouse is raised and something new is put in, does that still carry with it this sort of district designation? The answer is yes. Does it make it a historic structure? Not necessarily.
Yeah, that's my understanding as well. So you can have a modern building, you can build one today, but it still needs to go through hard and match the character of the historic district.
So my son's structure was built in, I think 1900, and it's in a historic district, so anything that they modify is got to go through the Philadelphia Historic Commission. Pardon me. Not just deed, now it's just by the municipal regulation. So it's not a deed.
Got a lot of good discussion. It seems to me that we could take action on these four districts. Or we could deal with them one by one. Or we could delay and ask, try to get more information. I'm up to the council of this board as to how you wish to move forward. But I'm not sensing there's unanimity on all four of the proposed districts, but perhaps there is, so we can deal with them individually or as a whole, or come back after we have more.
Ken, any change that you would adopt would have to be by ordinance, so anything that would happen tonight would just be
Advisory.
correct.
Yeah.
And based on the discussion that you've had so far, I think it's better to go on each individually rather than collectively, because there's been, I think, many things.
So fine with the board? Okay.
But the recommendation would be for staff to prepare an amendment to the ordinance for consideration.
Taking into account the action we take or the advice we give them.
Correct.
Yeah, thank you. There's no more general discussion, let's talk about Rose Garden. What is your advice to Jen?
Well, I didn't think I heard anyone object, maybe there's something about it's all very, just nothing here. So I'll move to dissolve the Rose Garden, I'll move to authorize staff to prepare an amended map of the town of municipal historic districts. And accompany ordinance for the further consideration to dissolve the Rose Garden district.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and second, discussion.
Yeah, I have a quick question. Jim, do you know to what extent if the historic districts going to be dissolved, do we have to go through the PHMC as part of the process?
No, they only require it for certification of new districts or boundary changes to like addition, so we would just let them know it's been dissolved.
So if we took property off, we don't, but if we added property, then we would.
Correct.
Gotcha, okay.
Yeah, any discussion?
I just say I don't go along with it, but with something Jim did say tonight previously. Some way to bring in the other historic properties. Like the Harley's house or the tavern,
Yeah.
it's on some way, and I think that's it.
Opposed to historic building.
No, you did it all, it's a good point, you're not in the RDO profession, so in the context of a modern ordinance.
I do believe the hard unanimously voted to recommend to the board to create an historic overlay district and capture historic homes that aren't currently in historic districts.
Okay, and that's something I think we should consider
Right.
for future action, but that's not.
Which game has just got problems.
All in favor, aye? Opposed, no, motion carried itself. That's our advice to you for road structure.
Okay.
Scrub run. So I think this one was the one to take away the,
Yeah, I didn't hear any negative comments on this, but.
I didn't want to see something taken out, but then,
I don't think you have to get any districtors. Yeah, that's 200 feet, that's one side, the next side, you know, another district.
Yes, if you walk through there, I think you'll be.
I do walk through there.
Have one of stunning collection of properties that is, it may be small, but it's pretty money. Money, not money.
okay?
So I'll move to authorize staff to prepare an amendment map of the township's municipal historic districts. And county ordinance for further consideration as follows: to amend the Trout Run district to exclude the homes in the Asheville Farm neighborhood, with the exception of 2450 Coast Circle as presented.
For a second,
Second.
moving second, discussion. All in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed, no?
No,
Motion carried, 4-1. Jefferson. You're again, just sort of was pretty much as taking away third, or rather 333. You reading any?
333 is-
Question about the. And then there was also a suggestion that, we added one, but then that was. Okay. What is your will, what is your, guidance for choice?
I moved to amend the Shepherdstown Historic District to exclude property 333 Scenic Drive, exclude the terraces of Shepherdstown properties presented.
Good second.
second,
Discussion. What was that last thing you said? Oh, exclude 333 C and then your which trail walk.
So, and to exclude the terraces at Shepherdstown.
Exclude. Okay, thanks.
I'm gonna go, this is 1944.
Yeah, other discussion. Or do you want to amend it and take that out? Oh, good. Other discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, no? No. Motion carried 4-1. Yellow Bridges.
And the same, I don't believe we need any action. We keep the district the same.
But that's an idea.
That is it. We have that just stay the same.
Oh, Yellow Bridges is,
the motion says keep Yellow Bridge district as is.
yeah. So you're suggesting if you don't take action, then Jed's recommendation, well, it would just stay as it currently is.
Correct, just thinking, have an ordinance to keep something as it currently is.
She just showed us one suggested motion.
Yeah, but
I see it's in the suggested motions, but it's unnecessary.
They don't take it, they don't do that.
Yeah, I would bring them all
I,
together. Yeah.
you okay with that, everybody? All right, there's at least your advisory directives for now, then.
Okay, thank you.
How's that?
That works great, thank you.
Still on today's meeting?
We're still on
We have a
today's
hard meeting in June 17, is that correct?
We do, we did get a last minute application in addition to the 240 Gettysburg Pike, which is commonly known as the Union Hotel. They want to replace some guardrails and install some new ones at the advice of our building code official, who says the current ones are non-building code compliant. And then, I believe they have also added in now some storm doors to help control heat and working of some of the existing wood doors. And then some additional railing. So That will be discussed at HARB. And then later this month, and then it will come back to this board for action on the certificate of appropriateness. And then also we got a last minute addition that came into us after this agenda came out, but the next door neighbor to 240 Gettysburg Pike at what would be 1943 South York. There is a fence now that runs along the wood fence that runs along between those two properties. They would like to enclose their lot and add more wood fencing to do the enclosure around their property.
So the yard would be.
Yeah, I think he said he wanted to enclose it for his dogs. So so they're looking to use the same wood material to match the existing fence. So that will go to HARB. And the HARB meeting, for everyone's interest, is June 17th at 6:30. And then after HARB has a chance to review and discuss, that too will come back to the board for action on a certificate of appropriateness.
President Humphrey, yes, I just want to give a shout out to Scott Frazier for all of his help with historic district signs. He really initiated the basic concept of these signs, and I just thought they were fabulous. Some minor adjustments along the way, but he really gets credit for just that good of love. And
Thanks, sir.
So you weren't proposing though that his state be one of those.
Those are the replacement signs, you just hadn't seen them.
I have a request for a 5-minute recess, and we'll call that. If we can do it in 3, that's fine. Thank you.
Oh,
This is, the next item on the agenda is public improvements, and that is Bishop Bridge, and what is introducing that?
Listed as item 480, it's a memo for myself, to the board. Bringing up the topic of possession of Bishop Ridge, which is currently owned by Cumberland County.
In York County.
In York County.
Okay, so we've been at this for a long time, we talked, looked at various, funding sources, we looked at, in case of the county, who has been very gracious, as a matter of fact, to give us, several extensions, I think, these 2 months ago when we got the last extension. But if they did that extension to June 5, so we're, we give an answer to them about ownership of Bishop Bridge Park, whether or not we are interested in accepting or we have a county retaining ownership of Bridge by Florida. So the floor is open for any discussion, but I think then I would be ready to entertain a motion either accept ownership and or not ownership, which basically.
Or I was having a big work, that would make sense, especially I'm assuming most of the audience is here, they want to press. That's something that we signed up.
Sure. There's one person, I believe, we, as I and generally, we will allow other people to talk.
So, but county's the most gracious cooperative. We did, just for information purposes, receive a revised proposal from the line, which works company on May 2nd, and a letter offering to relocate the bridge for vehicular purposes for $1,050,000. That's up from $850,000 for pedestrian emergency access for pedestrian and emergency access use. I believe the primary funding could, the county has indicated they would give us $275,000 for the rehabilitation, coming from the $5 registration fee or other fuels monies. And they also have a small bridge program funded by some similar source. You know, once you list out base ownership, that could apply to some out also for future maintenance. Bridge would have to be inspected. I mean, I think maybe we show consensus as a board. There was previous decision of one for the interviews versus so this $200,000 difference. Again, if you want to get there,
Just interrupt, I think the county grant offer is dependent on the.
it is, yes.
So that's $175,000.
Right, I think we're kind of going down that road. But the other, then there's other, none of us, some of us are like rich more than others. Nobody wants to make a calamitous, bad financial move for the township. My own assessment is between the county funding, our own funding, what grants may be available, that would be very much covered. Big part of the cost. So I don't interject, I don't know that you need too much. We did just today get one of the other reasons for the extension was to involve CS Davis and give us their comments on the wrought iron proposal, and that just came through today. And I think maybe after we reviewed it and visually or read that to the audience, to be quite ready. Is eligible for this national register. We only have one registered property in our LMS, the Union Hotel. I believe the Lincoln Cemetery could qualify. Somebody did the work or they've done some of the work. There are other historic buildings with the average for required assessment. We know Bishop Ridge would qualify for technological it's time. So the Bush Storage Society people are here, and the bid just came back on Sheepford Road Bridge about a week or so for $1,700,000 to relocate that for. It has to reuse, the way that it was kids late, that's a lot of problems on. Difference like in the price between like product, Bridgeworks or how they do it, which is like this old fashioned take the part by hand, reverse order assembly. Versus like the Sheepford road bridge, where we lived it with a crane, you're gonna have to clear nearly an acre of land, cut down to some trees. You lift the bridge by a crane and then just assemble it. So we're doing it, you know, it's a different method. And in general, I think it's fair to say, we're losing these bridges and we're losing the know-how of how to take them apart. And do it the old school way, and part of the contractor's intent on my interest in the project was to be a demonstration of how, you know, we go to all Stock University Engineering Department, local blacksmiths, or tech schools, so people could learn this, because there are still quite a few of these bridges left in Pennsylvania and that's kind of like reading, but you're wants to take discussion here.
Well, I agree with her, that sounds great, but it shouldn't be as expensive over in the township. That's the only disagreement we have. Nobody's come to this board in 4 years saying, I need this bridge to cross the creek. So there's really no need for it. We have an emergency access that from SIA that the county makes sure we'll cut in. And we know the cost is unknown. I think it's such a variable. We're not going to take much of that bridge. It's really putting the taxpayers at risk. So I wrote my thoughts down, so bear with me. Right. So tonight we face a crucial vote on the future of Bishop Bridge, a decision that's been nearly 11 years in the making. I think it's vital that we document this general journey thoroughly. Conversation around Bishop Bridge's fate began in November of 2014 when a joint report by the Cumberland and York County Planning Commissions suggested a $62,700 investment in repairs for the bridge. This was projected to extend the bridge's life by 5 to 10 years, after which it would be closed without further repairs, and it would maintain a 10-ton weight restriction until that time. By October 2017, a preservation assessment by Ian Fleming shared with township residents estimated an $800,000 cost to rehabilitate the bridge for a 15-ton limit, or $2 million for replacement. Discussion also included closing the bridge and creating a newly gated emergency access road through Masonic College. This emergency access road gained traction, and on January 3rd, 2018, the Cumberland County Finance Committee approved spending $360,000 on its construction, with York County reimbursing 50%. It was again stated that no further funds would be allocated to Bishop Bridge repairs. In April of 2021, Herbert, Rowland, and Ruby provided an updated rehabilitation estimate for Bishop Bridge. Repairing only steel and stone issues would cost $900,000, while full rehabilitation, including contingency and engineering, would reach $2.2 million. Traffic counts at that time showed Bishop Bridge with 217 daily trips, significantly lower than Green Lane Farms at 2,808 trips, Slade Hill Bridge at 1,581 trips, and Sheepford Road Bridge with only 201 daily trips was also noted. It was recommended at that time that both Bishop and Sheepford bridges be closed. Following an inspection in July of 2021, Bishop Bridge was indeed closed. The estimated cost for substantial repairs to safely reopen it with a load posting for an extended period was $2 million. Concurrently, Township Engineer C.S. Davidson assessed the bridge, estimating minimum necessary repairs at $1 million and replacement of $1.5 million. I think I said 200,000. I said $2 million previously. By August 2021, Cumberland County initiated the process to remove Bishop Bridge. At the September 1, 2021 Board of Commissioners meeting, Brown Township Commissioners began discussing whether the township should take permission of the bridge
Now nearly 3 years and 9 months later, Cumberland County awaits our decision. During this period, significant historical preservation efforts have taken place across Cumberland County, offering potential models for community involvement. The Friends of Peace Church, a nonprofit, successfully secured ownership of the historic Peace Church in Hampton Township from the Pennsylvania Historic and Museum Commission in 2024 after managing it for 50 years. The Mount Tabor Preservation Project, a 501c3 established in 2019, convinced Mount Holly Springs Borough to assume ownership of the Mount Tabor AME Zion Church in 2020 and lease it back to the project. All ongoing work is funded through grants and donations to the church. These examples highlight the role of dedicated groups in preserving historic structures. This brings us to Metal Truss Bridges and specifically the Historic Metal Truss Bridge Management Plan. Completed in 2017 by PennDOT in conjunction with the Federal Highway Administration and the Pennsylvania State Historic Preservation Office, this plan inventoried and assessed all metal truss bridges in Pennsylvania. Of the 208 bridges it identified, each was assigned a priority of exceptional, high, or moderate based on design, rarity, context, unique features, and overall condition. Those are the official assigned titles. My personal feeling is with those three should be better stated as definitely, maybe, and not likely. In PennDOT District 8, which is our district, 23 bridges were listed. 9 were exceptional, 5 were high, and 9 were moderate. This prioritization is critical because the Historic Metal Truss Bridge Capital Rehabilitation Program, funded in 2021, focused on bridges in the exceptional or high categories. Sheepford Road Bridge is listed as exceptional, while Bishop Bridge is listed as moderate. Additional criteria for funding include public visibility and strong local support. Sheepford Road has the Friends of Sheepford Road Bridge, a dedicated community group. In contrast, Walt Brown has various community initiatives. There isn't a Friends of Bishop Road Bridge. Given these requirements and limited funding availability, it's highly unlikely Bishop Bridge would ever receive money from this program. Notably, Sheepford Road Bridge was awarded $2 million from Kinsley Construction, winning the bid at $1,731,000, bringing the total cost with engineering, which was paid by the state, to approximately $2 million for a pedestrian bridge with a 3-ton weight limit. We're talking about a vehicular bridge with a 15-ton weight limit. The decision at hand is, while Bishop and Sheepford bridges differ in design, length, and deterioration, it's difficult to reconcile some of the numbers presented in Wrought Iron Bridge Works proposal. Our time is up. We need to make a decision tonight. I have not seen any written communication from PennDOT indicating their approval of the process Wrought Iron Bridge Works is promoting. Furthermore, my request for Wrought Iron Bridge Works to provide a bond for the full amount of the contract should the completed project not receive PennDOT approval has gone unanswered. Therefore, I'll be voting no and take ownership of Bishop Bridge. Instead, I suggest it's time for someone to create a community group to save Glen Allen Bridge, as it's next to be abandoned by the county and it's not an iron truss bridge.
Your comments? Bill? Yeah.
I would like to lend my support to saving the bridge. Part of the problem with the classifications and the as these bridges disappear and there are fewer and fewer of them, the priority of saving the few that are left increase. In other words, so as more bridges go away, the few that are left become more of a priority. And I think generally speaking, and first of all, I agree that the community support is huge, and I think that's on me. I was so focused on going down into the weeds on some of this stuff, I neglected to really get the word out. But I do think that generally speaking, most people would be in favor of this type of thing. An example of that is the an online petition, while modest in scope. There were 2 competing petitions. One was for the township to take possession of the bridge, and the other was for it not to. Those in favor of taking possession of the bridge was 261 last I checked, whereas those opposed to the township taking possession was 16. So 261 to 16. Again, this was a modest, online petition, but I do think it's reflective of the community's, people's general, feeling towards this type of preservation. So, here we are again in our 175th anniversary of the township. Here we have a very unique structure, that I think complements the other historic aspects of our township, and I do think it's worth saving.
I have a question for Commissioner Walston. I mean, you say you want to support the bridge. How much money, Brentwood Township? Plan to support it, is it unlimited?
No. So I can tell you right now, 3 million is the non-starter. I wouldn't even enter the conversation, so it's well below that. I think 1.3 would probably be my upper limit. Calling out after the fuel tax contributions from the county, the 270. Was something right? Yeah. So,
But that would be what the caveat that had to be.
oh, you absolutely.
To,
So 1.3 all in would be.
for me, I don't think we could have been that, but.
I don't understand this belief, the documents support you, I can understand. Question the non-heritage qualification. But CSA did address that. They clearly have experience and work, there's some concern about environmental experience, I think that can be addressed. Well, to Jim, your point about engineering costs, adding that to cheaper, this is design build, the engineering is on the contractor. So we don't have that engineering unless we try to make it an events the engineer's project, which you don't even have to.
It's not completely true, Eric, because the tenant's gonna want to see plans, they're gonna want to see. What was done in order to get, they're not concerned is we're gonna have a bridge. That PennDOT's not gonna move through, and we're gonna be out the money, and that's why I asked for the bond, which nothing to do, nothing we've done with the bond.
The bond is been offered all along, with the understanding it was an additional cost. If we wanted it on, but there were multiple checks and balances of being able to inspect the work, as bridge comes apart, as it's in the shop and so forth, of the load calculations. So you had area where you didn't need one whole project.
When you look at the Sheepford Road packing, they talked about architectural digs and environmental testing. I don't see any of that in the plans.
Because you don't need that, you're taking the bridge, you're not.
Anytime you
use this, you're taking the bridge, you mark the waves, there's no penetration. There's no digging. And a man comes in and we show, I don't know how to explain it anymore. There's pictures of this bridge coming apart with a little blue truck. And so forth. I've seen this.
What's that you said, like, if you're working over a Pennsylvania stream, do you need a permit from that?
Well, you need a permit from the state, GPM levy for replacement of the bridge structure. The PennDOT gets involved according to the type, size, and location submission process. And it would dictate if there are additional environmental clearances required as part of that review and approval process. It's typically done well ahead of the structural integrity submission that all is favor.
So we don't have any of that. We have a proposal for a bridge with 12 tons, which wouldn't support a school bus. There are so many holes in this proposal. I mean, not alone the fact, I don't think they've ever been here to see the bridge. Has anyone from the company ever come to Southern Pennsylvania to look at the bridge?
They both were good, we didn't rush. They come and see the cheaper bridge.
But they've not been on site, is that correct?
No.
They had their proposal, but they come here for a few years on their two meeting. They're coming from years. They have began funding assessment, they have the CS dates and Senate evaluation, how they start the proposal, we accept that, we take the risk. There's memo in the dates and memo about the different section walls, they're going to be replaced. They were saying they will replace everything and these replace. I thought I'll make it look different.
Right, well, one of the C.F. Davidson's comments was the proposal indicates the replace retention of load requirements
However, it does not clarify how many replacements are included, the cost provided, the township may be, because there's still areas where they say, yeah, this may happen. And we'll cross that bridge when we get to it, we don't know what the money is. You can't do that, you can't go out and commit.
They've seen the farmer, they sent them our studies, don't worry, yeah, they look at like 2 experts, 3 experts, it's HR to go. So, I was hoping Ken would say, but
I was waiting to get a chance. So, as I look at it, we've been discussing it a long time, and I agree in a perfect world, where we had something fully funded or majority 80% by grant money or something, sure, it'd be nice because it's a unique bridge and I love driving across it. My family always joked when the kids were small about we're going across the sinking bridge. But I can support this project unless, first of all, it has to be for vehicular use only, in my opinion. Because it's a pedestrian bridge to nowhere, it doesn't really connect with our park system, and I'm not sure it does a whole lot for longer on different roads, because they can go back and forth. I happen to think that there's a lot of land back there that's going to be sometime in the next 50 years will be an alternative use of the scenic peninsula, and we might have a time when we need that vehicular use back there. So that's my first criteria. And then secondly, we I think to some of our colleagues credit, they've come up with an alternative to the traditional way to do construction and rehabilitate a bridge. But unfortunately, in my view, the contractor is, I suspect, qualified, but he certainly hasn't demonstrated that, nor have they been very responsive, because when we asked for more materials, when we asked for information, it was us asking the contractor, and I'm accustomed in my career to working with contractors who have answers, who really want work, who want to see a project complete. It felt like we were inviting, begging, coaxing this particular contractor to join us, or like, you come do this for us. A lot of promises, yeah, we can do it, but his firm hasn't demonstrated it to me that he really wants the job and or that he's technical people doing it. I don't mean to be critical of him, I know he has some health problems, etc., but any good responsible contractor has a breadth of personnel and professionals on staff that can fill in and get the job done for them. So I don't have confidence in the contractor. We've asked him to get permission from PennDOT that they would accept the proposal and or that it could be rehabilitated for vehicular use. And it's just a bunch of excuses and well, I get to it next time, or I can't do it. So first of all, I cannot be supportive of the project unless it's for vehicular use. I don't think we've proven that. I think what we're proposing tonight is a pedestrian bridge. That's my first doubt. Secondly, I don't think we have the right contractor or responsible contractor. And thirdly, I'm not optimistic that we'll ever get PennDOT permission to in fact be acceptable under the current structure to be rehabilitated and be responsible for the vehicular bridge. And then quite frankly, I'm not sure it's a high priority for all Brown Township residents. It is for some people who like historic structures, I'm not opposed to them. It is for some of the immediate neighborhood, although people that joined that bridge have actually asked for it not to be rehabilitated, but I don't see a groundswell of interest from our constituency that they want to do that. And I'm not going to spend good taxpayer money to try to do something that we feel is going to turn into a nice feature or is a hobby project. So no disrespect, but I think we had vetted this thing long enough, and so my vote is no. But I'd like to hear from the audience and see this. Just wait, the lady, right? I'm sure about it. Yeah. But Mike, you want to make you any hand on this one? Yes.
Obviously a very good decision, but for the sake of clarity, before you vote, the archaeological digs were required for Sheepford Road because they are doing it in the traditional way. which is using a crane. So in order to do that, they're cutting down 32 trees on the property. And all of that, and putting a crane there, and we actually are property owners, so it would definitely affect us. And so they came in twice to do an archaeological dig to make sure that everything's gonna be okay. If it was done by whatever contractor with lifts, that wouldn't be required. So sometimes we're comparing like apples and oranges. Our bridge is also a bridge to nowhere, but it ties into Lower Island Township Park, and we're working with Fairview Township to make the other side of the bridge. There's a road that leads out to Old Forge Road, to bring Fairview residents into our, able to use that recreation area. So,
And your bridge is a different construction method too, and unique, in the time period it's done.
I'm sorry,
So your bridge is not the same construction, same type of construction as Bishop Bridge, they're different examples of iron bridges. And that's what got you the exceptional rating.
right, and also because our bridge has Phoenix columns, and that's where we really came into the brand new design that they used at the time. However, it is similar in that it can be taken apart and put together again into pieces.
You're saying that from your professional statute, that archaeological, environmental.
Environmental,
Are not necessary part of it.
and there will be environmental, I'm sure, but in some type, yes, there will be environmental clearances required. I'm not familiar with the proposal enough to state whether your contractor did include that in his estimate or not, environmental clearances. I mean, if you took on the project from design to end, you would think that it would include that. But I'm only commenting on the fact that we had the archaeological dig because we are using cranes, so.
Okay. The people from the audience, if they're away. Well, I think, let's see, Mr. Mayor. Go ahead, you're up.
Paul Brennan, 2020 Stone Center. I'll be brief. I've already been here for 3 hours. This is what I came for. I've been following it. I knew 4 or 5 months ago when you guys extended it, this is where we were gonna be. PennDOT doesn't work that fast. It's not a priority to them. Commissioner Walsh mentioned this survey. How many of those were actual Upper Island Township residents? You know, who cares, Lower Island people, or it's our taxpayers' money. Kirk Stoner, I would have been amazed to see him here today, because he's had enough of it. You know, he's given us opportunity, and we're no closer to what we were 4 months ago. Mr. Klein Peter lives there, he had nothing positive to say to City Bridge. Back in the early 1980s, I traveled daily in the wintertime to go deer hunting at the Montague. I can still go, it just takes me about 5 minutes longer. I don't see the need to say that.
Is Mr. Barry still on the audience?
Mr. Barry.
Yeah, and you're Barry.
Yeah, that's me.
Oh,
I didn't want to talk.
Oh, yeah. I wish, I had your shot at it and get on camera. Oh, there's a. Other people have, yes, Jeff.
Jeff Williams, 334 East Meadow Drive. I'll try to make it short. I've had the pleasure of working with an agency for quite a few years. We've had 7 distinctive historic sites in Ellicott City. Extreme use by the public. Irrefutable historic significance. You go on the website, look it up, and see what I'm talking about. But for me, it's really simple. And it has been the issue, is using valuable tax dollars for something like this, that is going to affect a minimal number of people. I do not support using tax dollars for this, when we could use them for other things that have a positive impact on our community. Not that it's neat privilege, not that it isn't a neat privilege. But I've been involved with historic sites, and I don't see that for our township So say good night, so.
Anyone else in the audience? Oh,
I don't have anyone prepared, but.
oh, you should
I
really
would
give
give
us.
it.
You should just trace it first.
Oh, Paul Wigan, 605 Lavina Drive, Mechanicsburg, PA 17055. But I mean, I've sat in the seats that you fellas sitting in, and you called it a hobby project. I would call it more of a vanity project. I don't, I'm somebody who's belong to historical societies. I appreciate old things. I come from an old part of the country, not as, I mean, an old part of the country, not any older than Pennsylvania, up in Boston. And you save things that are historical if it can serve a purpose. Make it a museum, repurpose it. There is no, I cannot see any reason for rehabbing this bridge at a cost that's enormous. I mean, you guys are stewards on money. I just can't for the life of me think that you would really believe that people of this township would want to spend upwards of $2 million. I mean, why do you want the bridge? You want to keep a metal or iron bridge because it's a historic place. But we just learned that there's several of these iron bridges throughout the state. It's not like this is the last one on the block. This is the last one in the state. I can't tell you how disappointed I am that you've taken this long to come to the conclusion that this is a waste of money. This is a boondoggle. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Okay.
Not any other comments from the commission?
I expected costs would be an issue. I don't think it's fair to always be doubling with the costs. We have an estimate at 7 million, you make it $2 million, that's not a fair argument. There's a way to analyze the difference in costs, that it's just not a fair comparison, but I will tell you, especially you, Paul, having sit in this seat, I've seen millions of dollars, like manipulated or moved around in this $30 million budget. And then some of it to the good. I would pay Kent a compliment, and maybe Scott, they would let me. But a big dollar transaction that went under the radar in the last few months is, we budgeted $900,000 for Fisher Bridge. Yeah, that's a private discussion. But we budgeted $1.5 million for sewer work in Rivercroft. And I'm somewhat new to this, but Ken came to a sewer advisory board, and they basically, you got them to back off on it. And ended up reducing the sewer in Rivercroft down to like 550,000 or whatever. The bid came in 650,000. So $1 million was manipulated in a way or saved without anybody, being ordered. So I give Ken credit for that. And then I learned something from Scott, I repeated Scott. So we ended up $600,000 for this sewer work. Mainly on Hemlock Drive, is it not 18 homes or 14? But mainly because of this I. And I think you said, Scott, and I think it's correct, you're never gonna get that money back. This $600,000 for spending it for sewer work. We would have been better on a case by case basis if it failed to have replaced. At least that's my interpretation. And then I don't know if Jason's privy to the bills. I know Davis did design work for the sewer for GHD did, but very expensive laterals and manholes versus the bills like tonight there was one from Charlotte or whatever on an as needed basis replacing the lateral like $5,000. So I'm not convinced that was a wise investment. I mean, I'll know more next time. Whether it's also videos of what atrocious for water management system, but you're treating the water anyway. So, and then I use the example before, Jeff, you act like you're bewildered or lost, but we replaced stormwater pipe, we relined it in Meadow last year. And we used Mr. Rehab, I should have been on your street almost in your area, Jeff. It was $620,000 to renovate the block of stormwater, 25-year-old stormwater pipe Meadow. And that's a valid investment. Nobody, actually, very few people complain about any expense you made this. But nobody complains about this stuff. But so we're supposed to, spend this money on Meadow Hill. And I'm Lincoln High. But infrastructure that was here for 100 and some years that served the community, this bridge was in operation 120 years. It can go 120, another 100 years, because we're restoring it to what it was. That life, everybody's missing the life cycle of this. So I think there's different ways to look at costs. And I myself, we're not gonna spend some bottomless pit of money. And there are other grants to consider. DCNR, LSA grants. And I will challenge you, Mr. Williams, especially, and anybody else. One of the issues with this bridge is nobody seems to know where it is. And I have to take on this emergency access road, thanks to Jim. We know the county's got $360,000. It's a 12-foot wide paved trail that is better than anything you're gonna create in Generations Park. It's already there. It goes through the woods, meanders through the meadow, and ends 500 feet in front of the bridge. It is a tremendous resource that the county already invested that money. We can leverage and use that. And give people a pay to park in Messiah and walk on this beautiful trail to a beautiful area that nobody knows about. And apparently it was, people have designs on, developing this area. And it's an area that could be preserved. As this bridge could be in a cost effective.
Other discussion? Yes, you.
Really 450 East Lisbon Road. This is a complicated subject. I think it's one that's sort of an thing for our township to go after grants and do historic preservation. It's something that we're looking into the future to do. We're taking it on as a mission for the sake to preserve what we have. And this is an example. Probably there'll be a few more of opportunities for us to have historic preservation as we are filling up with developments that don't have any historic significance or any iconic splendor, anything to grow under sign there that the barns and the churches and the hotels are going away. So I did see this bridge as an investment for the township. What do we have in our township? We have farm markets, we have the Yellow Bridge to Creek, we have our parks. And we need to support it. Then we have our commerce, which I also think we should be supporting more, but we need to develop those things because the open space is gone. What do people think of when they come home to around township? They want to go float down the creek in the summertime, they want to go down to the Normal Park. And we're taking away some of that iconic things. It's valuable, it has value. I was thank God. One of the main reasons I got involved with the township is because I do have some experience with grants and it's a terrible mess to get into, but I'm in it, and I would like to, as we move forward, and maybe I even still can do some work to save the Bishop Bridge. Because when you see this bridge, it takes your breath away, and I like to say that. So anyways, I'm offering, I can help with some of these grant applications.
Can I ask a question then? Would you be willing to spend any township money on this bridge?
I was never interested in that aspect. I was looking at the grants, opportunities and the public support. I just appreciate that.
And you're on that list for a long time. But you're.
I just apologize and I wasn't here earlier. Maybe I could have helped. Maybe we can look forward to a different approach.
So I understand you told the county if they would give 6 more months, you'd have the third vote. Would you be the third vote?
I like to have information. I have to do some exploration.
I seem to think it's the third vote. I just thought maybe you could go already.
No, no.
So in response to, I know that you are grants value and time together, but in all fairness, if you look.
It's still tax money.
It is, but it's not ours directly, but if you look in compliments to our staff for the past decade, we have gotten available a lot of money, so it's not that we don't know how to do it, or that we haven't been trying. but I haven't seen much action or much traction from supporters who the bridge to go out and get that money or organizations do it, was to hire consultants to do it, so it feels to me like, maybe if we were starting from alpha tonight, we have the possibility that we did that just for a long time tonight, right? I'm tired of process not getting anywhere in what you suggested, is the outside stuff. And that's why the county has given us till tomorrow. I've announced for 3 months that we're gonna make a decision tonight, so at some point I'll entertain more discussion or I'll entertain a motion, but we're going to ready to take action before.
And I did ask you specifically, or I asked the staff, you had made the comment to pause on evaluating the bulk grant opportunities. That we made a decision. I think that's not too late. I think they go hand in hand. I've seen all along, I mean, whether the board, wants to apply for the grant, like this year, the big LSA grant is the second part of the Trails of Generations Park. And I had asked Scott, or I do not, if it's not Bishop Root, it's like an LSA, what is? And I felt like we were late getting that information last year. And we could be positioning ourselves if we delayed the project. But here again, I'm of the school, we try to minimize the cost of the township. I mean, people are saying, go to this, would you spend $1 million, would you spend $2 million? I don't think either one of those. I wouldn't say we spend no more than what we gave Mr. Rehab to reline those stormwater pipes, because the grants potential is there. If we maintain our batting average grants that we have over the past several years, which is very good. But only if we identify this as important to us as a game.
Two points. You're trying to compare state mandated stormwater and public sewer with a bridge that basically it doesn't have to be there, but the other two do have to be there. They're both going to be
Perfect role and challenge and stormwater stuff. It's an unfunded mandate.
Well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's not, it's still a mandate, and if we don't follow through, we will lose our license to operate our sewer department. That's the leverage they have.
We should have discussion whether it's worth it. Yeah, so I maybe less. That's out the stormwater. But you also have how much legal obligation in the sense of you have a comprehensive plan. You identify this bridge, like yours of Jim was on a lot of it was identified as a good resource above ground.
And no one's got forward. But in that period of time, you've had save the horses, save the farm, save it before they pave it, and save up ground. Where was save the bridge?
So Jam said, and I say the bridge campaign one sheet.
She did a wonderful campaign.
Don't aren't aware of this. It's just been closed and such an isolated section of the township.
And I went to Representative and said, would this be a proper subject for an LSA grant? And he said, no. LSA grants need high visibility, big community support, and need to benefit a lot of people either economically or socially. It doesn't mean any of those requirements.
Well, we certainly have, it's okay, especially, but I didn't want, can I just say, a whole drive bridge? That's it's a model comparison to this bridge. It's an 1896 Rhode Island bridge below Hillsburg that's rehabilitated for behavior. It's a low track bridge. The county made that investment. It's the same how right.
Is that not true?
Say York County. Yeah, I don't think it's county.
York County, Wayne County, both on this bridge need to have to grants.
And I, hearsay, but I think that Cumberland County is tired of extending the deadline.
That's just a courtesy now for none of us.
Any other comments from the audience? We entertain a motion action.
I do accept it, I'm sure, bridge.
Second.
Been moved in second, any discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, no? Motion failed 34. What? I apologize. Let's get an extra vote. No. The result vote was 2 affirmative, 3 negative. They're all very motion.
Oh, my understanding is unless we move to accept the bridge, they're going to.
Oh, okay. Then just.
Correct, you don't need to vote to not.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, well, I'm real curious how it. Geez.
What
It's gonna be the reverse.
Eric. I know you're aging, but I'm giving you more credit than that. Come on.
See why I still like.
Anything else in public improvements, Jen? For Scott?
No.
Let's go to the sanitary store. Don't think we have any action, probably no updates. Administration committee, and this is, just for who's nailing that. Steve, or,
Yes, I will.
yeah,
Commissioners will remember last year we applied to CALCD for exemption from the amplified noise regulations of the liquor code. That was granted, and that exemption extends to August 21 of this year. We're in a position now where we need to reapply for exemption under the LCD policies. This exemption would be for 3 years for the next cycle, and after that, this cycle would be for 5 years. The process is the same as what we went through a year ago. There have not been, to my knowledge, any significant issues, noise related with respect to amplified music. There have been some complaints or comments about noise around the Willows, the Ashcombe facility, but all of those occurred within the permitted time hours, and I don't think there was any demonstration that the music exceeded the allowable decibel levels, although there were complaints made to the property. So with what we need to do is adopt a resolution to present the petition to the LCD. That resolution is in your packet. It's pretty much straightforward, and then with that, the LCD will schedule a public hearing and go through that process.
So I was the beginning, and I know this Atlas is here. I thought we did it last year. You're saying it's annual, or
it was only good for 1 year, and that's their standard.
for like the first time.
For the first time is 1 year, second time is 3 years, third time is 5 years. Policy, I mean, the procedure is still the same, because they have the maps. We don't have to resubmit them, but if they go the same.
Hopefully Sharon is available.
Same process.
did you want us to speak on this year?
Yeah, 2 seconds.
Well, we're gonna have 3.
It's-
You're waiting on the long time?
My bed. Thank you. Sharon Howard, 2479 Pine Drive. And I'm here once again. Thank you for going last year and making the appeal. I'm here once again to ask you to approve this, to go forward with the appeal once again as an impacted homeowner. I do that every weekend. It's becoming more frequent, and I would like it to stay in the local jurisdiction, so. Thank you.
Yeah, the one comment that I'd like to make as before is that the township regulation is stricter than the LCD regulation, so. It's for the benefit of Sharon.
Did you share the same opinion that there are some events that there's not a problem and other events that there are? And have you noticed any pattern?
Well, I think the difference is the type of event.
Okay.
So during the week, they have probably more business related events, retirement parties, celebration of that nature. On the weekend, when it's the weddings, and you hear the announcer announcing the wedding party, and I'm in the back of my house in my sunroom, and I can hear the boom, 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 and
You can feel that.
I can feel my sunroom vibrate.
It is very loud, and I would argue if you went to the common area along Grantham Road, there's a tree line between the common area of Ashton Farms and the mansion parking lot. If you held a sound meter there, I would find it very hard to believe that when one of her weddings are happening, that it's not, but it has to be borderline for that.
So,
That's the limit.
yeah, I think one of the problems is, bass doesn't necessarily need to be really loud to feel it. It needs to be really low. And they may come in underneath the decibel, but they're still rocking the place because the hertz that's being broadcast at, the low sound waves. Penetrating, and I'm not sure how we get to that.
Well, very good, he's gonna come next to the town, but we like today. No, if you bring something up, you might wondering if there's a way in addition to metering the sound. Right, there's some kind of a,
It may not be right, it may not be volume that's a problem, it may be the frequency is being broadcast. The sound. I never recommended the sound either. Well,
But there
so
was,
you've never measured the sound at all? At Ashcombe?
I don't know, I can check.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I thought we went out and bought a new sound meter or something that was more accurate.
Well, we did, and we have it, we're all trained on it. It has to be, the temperature outside has to be at a certain level, which I'm not sure what that is exactly on top, I gotta get back to you on that, but.
you need for the meter to work.
Correct.
Well, you're working pretty accurately, it's gonna be with really cold temperatures, that may affect what you hear.
Well, it's good, it's not.
It's not here.
yeah, it's not always just the bass, I mean, we can hear the crowd. We can hear that cheering, I know their playlist, give me their playlist. And I'm okay with that, you know, if it's at a certain volume, but when I'm sitting there and I heard I know every Saturday night around 9 o'clock, Journey's gonna play. I mean, I can tell you that. And it's like, when you can hear the announcer announcing the bride and groom's names.
Yeah.
That to me, I shouldn't hear that in my home.
I'm trying to figure out what's causing it, so it's the wedding receptions on the weekends, it's not the weekday.
Well,
And it is volume, not just bass.
both. Now, I will say, she used to take her, dismantle her tent for the winter. She's no longer doing that, so now she's having events year round. So now we have to deal with this. And it's just something we shouldn't have to listen to. I respect that she's there, she's done a beautiful job rehabbing that facility, it's gorgeous. I like to look at it as I'm driving by every day. But she's not being a very friendly neighbor by being respectful. And it's off-sided tents, not the type of venue that should be there. Thank you for. Well.
I mean, if you look at the conditional use application. Paperwork, there was not a tent on there, it was a structure.
Yeah.
Building, so.
What is it, the fence you have to by a quasi structure?
If you open the, on the flats, to be open up.
Well, do we have any, two more discussion with the accident?
I'll move to adopt resolution 1109 authorizing the submission of a petition to the Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board or expiration of an exception to the statute regarding amplified music being heard off premises of licensed establishments.
Check. Moved and seconded, any discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Motion no, motion carried. Nothing else for admin, Mark and Rec? There's nothing listed, do you have any?
I have nothing.
Okay, solicitor, do you have any update?
No, not today.
Tax collection, I don't think there's any update. Hi. The meeting was canceled in, May. MAB, I don't think they've had since State Association, any other public comment? I'd like to have a very short executive session to
Yes. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your attendance and your time. Dan, you'll always give back. So if you're a little bit late, so I work tomorrow. Watch your baby.